So recording now, but
Hmm.
yeah. Well, as I was saying earlier, I've been watching your work and your progress kind of from afar,
Yeah.
and I love personally being inspired. There's very few things in this world that are as precious as being inspired or motivated,
Yeah.
uh, and it's been really cool to watch your process. I've been seeing things as you're dropping them, and I think the latest piece, as soon as I saw it, I was like, I really need to talk to you because I think it would be really great to have you on. And I also think, for me personally, and I think the whole ecosystem of all this, it's really key to have. It's key to have people in this world that are chasing their own ambitions, and
Hmm.
doing things and doing the work that matters most to them, So
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. But anyways, I wanted to say I'm stoked to have you here.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. You obviously one of the key things that comes up when in regards to you and your work is how young you are, um,
Yeah.
which is interesting. But I also don't know if I like to just cling to that because I think you can be at varying ages as long as you're aggressive with your learning and very smart about how you learn. I think it
Hmm.
doesn't matter what age you are, you can still make exceptional work. And I like to just look at the
Totally.
quality of work. You make work that has a certain level of maturity to it that I think is really rare for somebody of your age. And I think that's probably why people potentially freak out about it. What are your thoughts about it being so? I mean, how are you still 16 or are you 17 now?
I'm 16. I just turned 16 in November.
Wow.
So, well, like I started like doing Blender when I was like 12,
Mm.
turning 13, and like then it was more of a big deal. Like like, oh, he's 13 years old and he's doing this and that. And I think I was, very categorized into that, column of being like young. And then like my art was all right, or like looking back at it right now. So I think like definitely because I was young, um, I got like some popularity, or at least in the blender space. And I think like a lot of people got inspired by that. Like there were a lot of new people joining Blender, especially,
Mm.
and digital stuff during the pandemic.
Yeah.
So I think that that helped.
Hmm. Yeah, I'd say like it makes sense that like I think when we think of younger people, we think like they're less capable than an adult. So when somebody younger
Mm,
is achieving these high goals, we just think, it must be easy. So then the barrier of entry
yeah.
is easier. But it's
Hmm.
not the fact, though. I'm sure that the way that you've processed your success has probably just come from a lot of hours just sitting there and being curious
Yes,
and learning and absorbing and
it's a lot easier to spend time on things when you're young.
I'd imagine, yeah, well, true. I would imagine that you're not just like this with this, but I'd imagine you're like this with all of the things in your life. Like you have a insatious, like an appetite for curiosity or learning something. Or is that true?
Yeah, I'd say so.
Mm.
Yeah, I play a lot of piano,
Mm.
and like with every sort of hobby interest I've had, it's been a lot of, going crazy and trying to learn it. I really love learning. Like
Mm.
I'd say that is my hobby.
You also
And,
love teaching too, which is really cool. I don't know if you love it, but you
yeah,
do it too
I
really
yeah,
well.
I do love teaching.
Mm.
People say I am a good teacher,
Mm.
but I'm not sure if, that's true or not. But
uh,
I think I do like it.
mm.
Um,
Well, I
yeah.
think teaching and learning are connected, right? You learn a lot more as a
Yeah.
teacher about what you're doing
Oh,
because
definitely.
you have to explain it and that
Yeah.
itself is another lesson of learning too because you're having
Hmm.
to go through that process. But you play piano as well,
Definitely.
huh?
Yeah, yeah. I've been getting into a lot of like jazz improvisation, things like that.
Wow.
And all creative things are very similar in terms of how you learn it and how you like perform it. And I think doing art and playing piano and doing whatever, they're very similar.
Wow. I need to adopt you. You're awesome. Yeah. Wow. This is so cool. Uh, I think that's one thing I wanted to make sure we addressed first because I want to get over that and then start to talk about
Hmm.
why I think, well, at least from an outside observer, what is making you accelerate so fast in a very unique way. And like I said, I feel like we can talk about Blender too, and I would love to. I feel like you're a perfect example of why Blender is so important to the community.
Hmm.
For those that are listening, Blender is a free software that's open sourced, and it's extremely disruptive because it basically does what all of the expensive programs do, but then better in a lot of ways because it is open source, right?
Yeah,
It's super powerful. And
definitely.
I mean,
I haven't used a lot of other things though, so I don't really have a good, reference of the other capabilities.
yeah, well, I mean, I've used Blender a little bit, and
Hmm.
it's almost like a language barrier. So because I come from like an older way of thinking, when I go
Right.
into it, I'm like, oh, where's my one thing? And when
Hmm.
you have a bunch of friction moments, you're just like, ugh, I can't
Yeah,
use
I
this.
can see.
Well, for me, art is a flow.
Yeah.
The best state of art is the flow state. That's all I live for
Hmm.
with art. It's like
Yeah.
at 4 a.m, the flow state's happening, and you're just like, yes, yes. But when
Yeah.
you hit friction points, and programs are literally just friction points, so
Hmm.
or they can
Right.
be, yeah, yeah. And the less friction points you can encounter, the better. So what led you into like discovering and working with Blender?
I mean, it's free, so
Yeah,
yeah, that was
barrier entry, less friction.
yeah, right,
Yeah,
right.
yeah,
Um, there's a large community, and there's a lot of tutorials. Like
yeah.
I watched so many tutorials in the beginning. Um, like man, I love tutorials because
Mm,
you when you complete or yeah, when you complete and follow a tutorial, you feel like you've made that thing yourself,
mhm.
which you have, by following instructions. And by doing that more and more, you sort of just learn to think in the best ways. Like you pick up the best tips and tricks from each video, and because there's so many, you can just absorb if you spend enough time on it.
Yeah.
And that's a really fast way to learn, just geeking out and watching a lot of tutorials and following them.
And practicing it. Yeah, I think it's one thing to watch it. I think they're called motor neurons or something like that. It's one thing to watch something. It's another
Hmm.
to actually put yourself through the process of actually doing the
Yeah.
tutorial. And then then even more important, as you're finding and I'm seeing your work, is watching a tutorial is one thing. Then doing the tutorial is another. That's just replication.
Yeah.
But thinking independently with your
Yes.
intuition and coming up with your own concepts, that is a whole other void to fill.
Hmm.
And as you mentioned
Trying to
before we started,
improve,
yes,
like trying to improve the render, or the tutorial results, and adding, like, not just changing it, but trying to improve it.
yeah.
Which, yeah,
Well, I mean, with knowledge, and sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off here, but I
no,
get
it's
so
all right.
excited. But as a digital artist, you have to do, and this is something that I have to constantly iterate to people that don't really understand what it is that we do. You're basically a god in a sense where you're banking everything,
Yeah.
And I don't mean this in like the egotistical way, like we're gods. That's not it. It's that there's a lot of things we have to understand, which is like how
Yeah.
cameras work, how lights work, how animation works, how things in life
Hmm.
works, and it almost makes you, it forces you to become a student of nature,
Definitely.
which is beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The more I'm advancing, the deeper I need to go into, like, the most absurd things, like how dust accumulates into, like, whatever, and like how different pipes go in, like, concrete, like buildings, or like really random things,
Hmm.
to get that realism.
Have you gotten into photography yet?
Not really. I mean,
It's
I
gonna
was
be good.
doing yeah, I imagine. I really want to get into
Mm.
film cameras and things, and
Uh,
I want to go travel, when I'm a little older. I'll probably take some photographs, and when I'm not.
Dude,
um
legit, I'm gonna adopt you, bro. This is gonna be great. Yeah, this
yeah.
is awesome. Yeah, like mini me. This is wonderful. Yeah, film cameras are incredible. I have not shot film. Think since I was younger, but I shoot
Really.
digital now. But I can't wait for you to get into photography because there was a when you're doing CGI, there's a level that you
Mm.
hit, you plateau. I found it, and I see it in a
Yeah,
lot
yeah.
of other artists. You get to a place where you've watched all the tutorials, you've understood all those things, you've watched all the films, and then
Mm.
you get to a certain part and you go, oh. And then once you start to get another tool, which like photography, which is basically observing the eye through a machine, and
Yeah.
you see how the world's seen through the machine, it almost gives you like a whole
Mm,
nother level. Like, because you go, oh,
right.
this is interesting, because right now you're using a false camera in the computer, but once you
Yeah.
use a real camera in the reality, you're like, oh
Hmm.
wow, I could see that being a huge uh,
Yeah.
hit for you, like in regards to growth. And not just, I mean, we're all growing, but that was one thing that I always tell CGI artists, like, what's the best advice? I'm like, get a camera, like buy a camera, a
Yeah.
cheap one. You can buy like a Canon 5D. They're so cheap, and then a little kit lens, and just go observe
Yeah.
the world and learn how to make really bad photographs until you make some
Hmm.
good ones. And then all of a
Right.
sudden you're capturing the world, and then you want to capture that feel in the computer. So it's this
Right.
weird
You
thing.
you
Yeah.
get another perspective. Like if
Mm.
I'm only observing the world with, my eyes, I can't really
Yeah.
store that anywhere. I can't observe memories that up close.
Yeah.
Like if I have a camera, that's
Yeah.
another perspective that can, help me. I
Yeah.
haven't really thought about it in that way.
Well, your work, especially your latest work, the Impetus work, I feel like when I watched it, I was like, wow, William has an exceptional eye for composition, and the way that you're shooting the digital world and manifesting it is, I'm really excited to see your photography, honestly, because being a fan of what you're doing, it makes me excited to see what you're going to make next. Of course, that's what you want from somebody that gives you that inspiration, because we all feed
Mhm.
on it,
Yeah.
and it's really important to the ecosystem of everything that we do. Like
Mm.
when I do work, I try to make it so that I go, this is the best version of myself, and I want
Yeah.
that to represent me. And if it's not ready, then it's just not ready. So,
Mhm.
but I do like when I seen your compositions and stuff, I thought that you were like naturally just doing photography and then kind of moved into this, but it's cool that I love that like the human journey is so vastly different. We're all just on this weird path, and it's all kind of like,
Yeah.
yeah, it's abstract, but yeah, I don't know. I'm excited to see that. I think that's going to be really, really like a really
Yeah.
cool thing for you to kind of add that to your, because you can also combine your photography with your CGI, because Blender is so strong at even VisFX work, which is really, we've seen that with Ian's work, like
Yeah.
Ian's done a really great work with his CGI and then using Blender as his VisFX tool to kind of combine both
Hmm.
worlds too. Yeah.
Yeah, man. I'm pumped for his coming short film episode. I think it's gonna be really cool.
What a force of nature that guy is, man. Yeah.
Yeah. It's incredible.
Yeah. He's got to be, I mean, so I'm like a Cinema 4D user, and I started
Yeah.
using that because it was like the one program that was somewhat obtainable, and it was like for the motion graphics world.
Hmm.
And it wasn't like using Maya or 3D Studio Max, which is what at the time was considered to be more of like the industry standard for
Right.
all of the things. And then Houdini came out and all this stuff, but then Blender came out, and I really wish
Mm.
I was in your position when Blender came out, because it's like I feel like it is in a lot of ways a very superior tool to many of the other programs because of the open nature of it.
Yeah, I think it has a lot of potential. I mean, there's still like there's some sort of limit to where Blender goes. I feel like
Yeah.
I don't see a lot of Blender artists that come up to the level that some Cinema 4D artists are at, or like 3ds. Or I wonder if that's just like Blender being the like entry level, like it's free, it's open source, it's easy for people to get a hand in the 3D game through Blender.
Mm-hmm.
But um like Cinema 4D, like people who use Cinema 4D, 3ds Max, Houdini, like I wonder if it's the people who have been working like for many years,
Mm.
that are able to achieve higher levels because of the software, or just their experience. Like Blender hasn't been around for that long.
Could be a combination of both of those things. 'Cause,
Yeah.
yeah. There's something about I think it's in the fidelity of the GI and the render. It's just something that I
Mhm.
noticed. It's like, yeah,
Cycles is weird.
yeah,
Like
yeah. The way it
I've been getting
calculates
into
light.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not a spectral renderer,
Yep.
and it has very bad energy conservation. And I've been getting into that kind of stuff because I've looked at your renders and Color Sponge's renders,
Yeah.
and there's something really special with them, and I just can't put my finger on it. Like, of course, it's all the detail, but I can't help to think that it's like some special sauce that's, in the render that makes them look more realistic.
Yeah, I think and thanks for that. I think well, we're talking about Volta too because there was a project that Carlos and I had done called Evanetta,
Hmm.
and I think Will made this amazing project called Volta. We used the same car, and he did this wild, like sick artsy piece that was like I mean, just look at the links and we'll make sure you check this stuff out. It's really impressive and it's really freaking cool, man.
Thank you.
But yeah, there is this weird gap that happens. Some of it's secret sauce, and I think some of it is literally the tool and the device, and I think some of it's just synchronicity. Carlos and I, when we combine our skills, we're like 20 years worth of CGI, 25 years or so combined. So
Yeah.
it adds up. And when you're looking at something, because for me, I can only speak to me, but I know that Carlos has such exceptional wealth and visual. His eye is one of the best in the world, I would say, with confidence in regards to doing what he does. And we're both kind of pushing each other. But there is a thing, and this is why I personally have not made the shift over to Blender, despite like friends like Mache, because like Mache is a full Blender baby now. Like he's full. That's his tool, and he loves it.
Who's that?
Mache Kuchara. He does
I
like
don't recognize him.
I imagine I know you've seen his work, but maybe the way I'm saying his name probably doesn't connect. But him and we did like the Blade Runner posters together with like the Toon Shader style, and like he's a founding member of Learn Squared, and he's an amazing artist. But he uses Blender like full on now, and he's incredible. But he does a lot of really amazing like Toon Shaders and stuff with it.
Okay.
So, but Blender is like, he showed me some stuff, and I was like, this is insane, and the level of stuff that it's able to do. But when it comes to render time, I've made the shift to Corona a while ago, and I think I call it like a baby V-Ray, and V-Ray is obviously, in my opinion, is the superior of all in regards to photorealism. Well, again, it depends on what you want, because like there's different things. Like Octane, I feel like is extremely amazing at like really high rapid rate renders, dealing with like really deep, complicated things. But I feel like Corona, for me personally, has that level. The GI, it's a way that the CPU math algorithm, I don't know, something in the math, the way it calculates the light and textures and all the data, but it's slow. And it's very costly and it's very expensive. So, but anyways, and to talk about when I was saying earlier about like CGI artists or digital artists, like there's such a wealth of knowledge that we really have to take in. It does take a massive amount of time in order to even get close to like producing anything of quality. Yeah. I mean, you've accelerated your growth through learning rapidly, which has been really wonderful to see. I'd imagine you probably talked about this at some point, but it would be really cool to understand and to shed some light into everybody that's listening how you learn. Because I think the way that you learn and you process data is very unique.
You think so?
I mean, the result. I think so based on the result. If your work wasn't at the level it is, then I wouldn't think so. But I think there's something to be learned for us all here. Like how you learn, because I have a certain way of learning. I'm sure that you have your own way of learning too. But
I mean, I wonder if it's just a lot of time. Like I wonder if time is, just the simple answer.
Yeah.
Because like if you just put enough time into it, like you can think of it like me and a few friends were talking about this. We were like learning like vectors in math, and we like had this realization like, oh, everything in this world is is vectors. And I think it's a funny way to think about it. Like say you have just a big 2D plane, and it's sort of like what is it called, like a neural engine space. It doesn't matter. So you're here at this point, and you have a goal of achieving something, which is here. And like anybody can do work. Like energy doesn't, get lost. Like if you do some work, or put energy, or like do something, that's going to have an effect. Like there's always cause and effect. So imagine you can point your vector in any position you want, but that might not, be easy to do. And you can, if you do enough work, point your vector in the right direction, you will be able to achieve that goal. But if you can't just do work and get nowhere, because then you're probably getting further away because you're putting work into doing the wrong thing.
Yes.
Sort of like that. So you just need to put a lot of time and a lot of effort, a lot of work, and really navigate that, vector direction and do it in, the right way. I think you need to have some luck too,
Yeah, luck, timing are always good as well. Like timing for you is being put on the planet when Blender's been around. A free, very powerful, very disruptive program. Yeah. But then also, like you said, to talk about the vector, and 100% I agree with that, because life is about intention. Life is about what you do with the time that you have. We all have the same time. Yeah. You and me are sharing the same time span as Elon Musk right now.
Yeah.
How crazy is that? One of the most prolific human beings on this planet that's established so many interesting things is on our same currency, which is time. So what dictates that is our trajectory, right?
Yeah.
And yeah.
Exactly.
It's a good way to look at it. And I have that's the way I look at it. I go, this is something that I've talked with friends about. It's like, I won't spend my time doing something that doesn't have relevancy to what my trajectory is. Simply won't.
Yeah.
There's no point in it, because my life value to the world and myself is to have that trajectory clear. Today I'm doing this, and this is it, and that is it. Like, and if I got to learn something, I'll just scrub through it, find the thing, absorb it, write a note, make it. I don't know if you do this too. I have to make tutorials for myself because my process gets so complicated. I have to remind myself, because I'm going in between like 7 programs, and I'm doing so many different things. It's just like, this to that, and all over the place. And this is how you do this here. And maybe because Blender probably does a lot of what the other programs kind of do, because I have to use like 3D Co and ZBrush and Cinema 4D and jumping around to these things and trying to find a good flow that happens. But
that's a lot of programs to juggle.
Yeah. It's very annoying.
But
they all have incredible strengths if you know where to get them. And they're really bad at some things and amazing at others. Like 3D Co is incredible for unwrapping like odd objects, and it just gives you a really good quick UV to then bring into Substance Painter and bake things into. So
I do all the texturing in Blender. I don't even worry about unwrapping. Right? Yeah. But there's like a certain level, like the final sort of like checkbox you can't really achieve. Like it becomes this exponential curve. Like you need to just have all the thousands of softwares and put all that time to get the final piece.
I don't know. But I love that and that's cool that you have friends that you guys can nerd out about that, because to be at your age is a blessing to have this perspective. Because if you go on and let's say you consider wanting to do this for a profession, I would advise either to or not to do it for various reasons. Right now, you're in this pure state where the art is pure. Hopefully it's pure to you. Like you're only doing it without I think it's hard now because like social media and likes and follows and calculated value of things is so prevalent, which really is unfortunate. But I don't know.
And AI art.
We're gonna definitely talk about that too. 'Cause like, I have some thoughts about that. Actually, let's segue. Let's talk a little bit about I would love to. We'll come back to the vector thing. I'm gonna make a note of it. So.
All right.
Because I think what you said is perfect. That you have intention with your learning, right? Correct.
Yes. Yeah. Like, sorry to cut you up.
No. Go ahead.
Yeah. Like to sort of wrap it up. You need to have a goal to be able to, direct your force into that correct direction. Like you can't if you're just going to practice Blender without, any goal, or like you might not be practicing it the right way. And, that's going to be, you're going to be pushing away further from your goal than closer.
To add to that, in which I 100% agree, I was always an advocate for project-based learning. You just make a project and you just fail and it's a suffer fest through it. But then you get a couple successes and you go, oh, I'm going to drop all the failures and take all the successes and bring them to the next project, and then do
All
the
right.
same, you know?
Yeah.
And you just keep going till you're going, well, I know how to operate the camera. I know what this looks like. I know the optics of that. I know how to rig this thing. I know how to texture this thing. I know how to animate
Yeah.
this thing. I know how to process this data. And before you know it, you add all those wins, and then you have something that's quite brilliant. You know, something that nobody can really acquire and understand. They'll look at your project. That's one thing I think is really fascinating. Like when I would look at your projects, I'm not there with you every day making it. So I just see the end. And it's never done, right? It's always can be better, evolved, or shifted and changed, but it's just due, you know, which is fascinating about art. There's no master of art ever. There never will be. And then there's also, it's simply because of the subjective nature of art. And then art is never done. It's just simply like evolves to a state where we go, okay. And then
definitely.
It's a wild life. You never can finish anything, you know? If you think about it, I guess you could. Some people say they have closure with their work, but I think that's bullshit. Sorry.
Yeah, I definitely agree. There's not really any project where I'm like, oh, now I'm done. Like this feels good to post almost. Like it's always like, man, this could have been so much better. I wonder what people, even think about this.
Oh yeah.
They'll be like, nah, that wasn't very good, William. But
you have an inner demon too, huh? Oh no.
Yeah.
Yeah. But the things do get done, right? As we said, it's like I think I'm quoting John Lasseter. He said, art is never done. It's just due, you know? So it's like, just getting to the
really
finish
good way
line.
of thinking.
Yeah. And I think it's probably more of like a less a healthy approach, because it's never really comes to that stasis. But sometimes it does. And what I meant to say about that is I'm not there with you through that intimate suffer, like, and I'm not saying that art is a suffering act. I think it can be, and it should be to certain levels, because in order to make greatness, you have to suffer. That's how
it is sort of like suffering. Like I think of it as my project, or the piece I want to create, is just one big problem. And then I just need to solve everything, find all the keys to it and to unlock it. So I guess that's a suffering, but then the reward of completing it and the things you learn along the way.
Yeah. And like I said, I think life, and this is just my evaluation of it, is life is filled with all the friction points. And it's like bad people in your life or good people in your life, and it's like drop the friction and then take with you the great things, and surround yourself with people that are really wonderful, because that's how you have a bountiful life full of greatness, But now I get all spiritual. I love all this kind of stuff, but I think that's something I really don't want. If you're listening to this, I don't want you to miss this, because what Will and I are saying is the trajectory is so essential. Because as you mentioned, if you just sit there and do Blender tutorials, let's say there's a step, there's a ladder of life, and we can't see the top of it. No one can. You're on the first rung of the ladder. If that's where you're at, you got to keep climbing, if you want to progress. That's my thought of it. It's the same for everything. I see that a lot. There's like this echo chamber of people just watching a tutorial and repeating the tutorial, and not taking the next step, which is the risky step of, let me see what I have inside. And most of the time, people are not going to like what's inside you until you develop that,
Yeah, you need to develop your things. Like, but there's something so nice with completing a project. Like it's almost like quantity over quality sometimes. Like there's the thing, like 90% of a unfinished project is a lot worse than like 100%. I don't know the quote, but like finishing something is a lot more important than making something that's great but that's not finished.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, because this striving for perfection is a void. It's a lie, basically. It doesn't exist. There's no such thing. Yeah, and I spent a big part of my life and my career chasing what I thought was perfection, because I was trying to overcome my lack of quality in other things. And so when I
Hmm.
just let that go and realize it'll never be perfect, it's just I need to get it done and I need to move forward and find
Yeah.
my own rhythm with all that stuff, which is also really, really tricky. But yeah, to the vector, I love that, the vector of learning, because I feel like that's, you're spending a lot of time absorbing, and forgive me if I'm paraphrasing, and jump in if I'm getting this wrong.
Hmm.
You spend an enormous amount of time observing the world within the program in which you interact. Your language, I just call it a
Yeah.
language because it is a
Hmm.
language,
Hmm.
and you've absorbed all this knowledge, and then you start to apply this knowledge on a like
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
working out, basically, like putting in the reps.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And then from that you start to evolve and advance it, right? Like, oh, I wonder if this works with that, and kind of combining
Hmm.
things and stuff. So yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah. And everything that you're doing, if as I see it, is when I'm looking at your work here, is it's project based learning. You have an intention
Yes.
and you're solving as you go.
Hmm. I've learned, like, the thing, it's so important to have a goal.
Mm.
Like I said before, like, there have been plenty of times where I've, started work on a project where I have sort of an intention, I kind of want to do this. I kind of want to, create this feeling.
Mm.
And then I just start working on it because I just want to, create something. And then it just turns out really bad. Or
Yeah.
like I get halfway there. I've done a lot of work, like
Yeah.
months or like, a couple days. And it just doesn't fit. It's like all the pieces are nice, all the shots are good, but they don't fit together. There's no story. There's, it all falls apart.
Mm.
Um, and that's the worst feeling, when you just need to like scrap a whole project
Mhm.
and, start over,
It's very
because
humbling.
you sort of need, it's sort of like riding a wave.
Mm.
Like, you need, um, to be, for me at least, like I need to get that sort of XP boost of completing a project,
Mhm.
to sort of, um, get energy to create the next one, and like inspiration and things like that.
Yeah. You mentioned getting to a place with your work where you have no plan, and then you get into this state where you kind of work off of like energy and inspiration abstractly, and then find yourself
Hmm.
months later like, oh crap, this isn't
Yeah,
what I wanted.
yeah,
That
that's not,
we all fall
it's not,
victim to that one. Yeah.
yeah,
Because you have I think it's almost like when you do that, it's because you've had false fuel. Like you have almost like you're using, you're not using really what you should have been using, which was the bigger idea, you know.
yeah,
And on the
right.
surface, it's beautiful and it's really well executed. And I can name a million pieces of an infinite amount of art that's been created to this day that's on the surface beautiful, but below that, just below it, it has no lasting power. And I wonder what
Hmm.
that is. I think it's mostly just intrinsically connected to what we value as humans, which is some sort of value to the human story. I think some sort of like, what are you adding
Hmm.
to the what is William saying about himself as a human in this experience?
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
just
really interesting, the, like, what gives a piece that lasting thing that makes it, last 10 years, or like makes it important, or, there are millions of art pieces, or, projects all the time. Like, what makes your project stand out? Like, what makes a good project? um like, there might not be an answer, because it's subjective.
that's right.
but
There's
but some
universal truths,
projects,
though. There's universal truths.
yeah,
Yeah, I believe so. There's some, but sorry, you're saying there's some projects.
yeah, that, that last longer, or that a lot of people like a lot.
Mm-hmm.
So there's some sort of key out there.
Let's dig into that. When you think of that, is there a project that comes to mind that you're like, I think that this has that lasting power. It's been inspirational for me. I've come back to it multiple times. Is there something?
There are a lot of them.
Yeah,
I mean,
same. Yeah.
it depends. Alberto Miego,
Sure.
yeah,
Of course. Yeah.
like all of his
Which one of
stuff.
his projects?
I uh, I mean, the windshield wiper.
Mm-hmm.
I've watched that a lot of times,
Yeah.
and I've watched Hibaru and The Witness. Like, I've just watched them a lot of times,
Mm-hmm.
and there's something, um, special about his work, and his style of, like, he's very stylized,
Mm-hmm.
but his like he just captures the feeling, sort of like
Mhm.
the feeling of the real world. So that's like almost more realistic than a rendering of it.
Mhm. It's like a
Um,
caricature of reality seen
yeah,
through his lens, and then but it seems and feels more real. It's very unique. Yeah,
yeah, definitely.
yeah.
And
Need to
it's all
have him
very,
back on.
it's all very pretty. It's all very, it's also technically like pretty, like with
Mm.
his clothing and his like the style and the colors. Like he has everything sort of baked in.
Hmm. Yeah, but I mean, at this point in his career, when you look at his projects, there's an enormous team of talent that is pushing these things to life. You know,
Yeah.
which is
Yes. Yes.
something that I have to also acknowledge, and everybody has to when we look at Alberto's work. Is he is a visionary director at this point, and he's able
Hmm.
to manage these incredible teams
Yeah.
to manifest. You know, I mean,
That's really
Color
impressive.
Sponge was attached to Yibaro, as I, but
Yeah. Right.
yeah, and so you have this talent pool of incredible,
Hmm.
and I'm not taking anything away from Alberto, because Alberto is, I mean, it's clear as day. I'm a massive fan. He's incredible. It's such a, I'm thankful that he exists in our life now because of his work and how inspirational
Yeah.
it is. And I knew you're gonna say his work, because he is that director that we look to in our world, which is a small CGI world, that is like, well, this is the best, you know, for
Yeah.
various reasons. But it also, he's telling a human story, you know, like The Witness was like
Hmm.
intrinsically connected to his perception and take on that part of his own reality or of experience. I don't know. I don't want to step onto what he was saying there in that film,
Yeah.
but it felt deeply connected to a potential situation in his life, I think, you know,
Hmm.
in a very abstract way. But yeah.
Yeah. Like everybody has a story to tell.
Mm.
I think.
Whether
Like
they know it or
there.
not.
Yeah. Exactly. Like you could be like the most boring person ever, and they still have a a unique story to tell.
About being boring. Yeah.
Right. You're like there's always something.
Yeah.
Um, so that's really interesting. Like there must be something that we just deeply like about humans, or like about ourselves, like
100%.
stories about ourselves.
Well, I think, yeah, I think we're tapping into the zeitgeist of what it is to be human, and I think that's it. We don't have the answers to the main questions of life, really, no matter who you
Yeah.
are, and we're just randomly going through the chaos of life, which is crazy, you know.
Hmm.
So, and just holding on. And I think art, when it's really exemplified and celebrated, in my opinion, I think it's when it's deeply connected to some sort of spiritual human connection, which I think is really
Yeah.
important. Yeah. With impetus, where did that come from?
Um, I mean, I always have some sort of, or not always, but I try to have some sort of vague feeling that I want to, like that's something I kind of am trying to achieve, like recently, like being able to make something, make a piece of art, an animation or project that can um, wake some sort of emotion in the viewers, um, and like that emotion was sort of not completely right. Something is off, like off-putting, basically,
Mm-hmm.
and like the feeling. I mean, in the text, like the fear of the unknown, which is everyday life for everybody,
Mm-hmm.
and like especially now, I feel, and I feel like a lot of people can relate to that, and hopefully that brings like being able to wake the emotion of someone, like someone feel like watching my thing and then feeling something afterwards.
Mm-hmm.
um that's pretty cool. I think that was like the goal.
Well, it's achieved, and you know, I think seeing what you did with Volta, I was like, this is rad. He's figuring this out. And then when I saw that, I was like, I need to talk with you, because I think that that for me is like, okay, now he's really starting to, for in my opinion, and again, this is just my subjective opinion. Now you're starting to really play with things in a way where I'm like,
Hmm.
okay, this is really getting to be very interesting, because you are doing that, which I think is fascinating. You are playing in that arena where you're like, oh, this is what I'm supposed to be doing potentially. You know, I'm supposed to be playing
Yeah.
with emotions. I'm a magician
Yeah.
here. I'm supposed to open your mind up and then put stuff in there. And I always say,
Mm.
like, the way I like to do my work is I like to finish it to about 80%, and then like let the audience finish the last 20%. Because then
Oh,
they're artists with me. So
how do you mean that they finish the rest of your work?
you leave
Like
it
you mean?
ambiguous enough so that they imply the viewer
Oh, right.
imposes their thought,
I see. I
and they
see. Okay.
finish the thought. I go, here,
Yeah.
I'm going to crack the door open. You can enter if you want to. And then if they
Hmm.
enter, they go, oh, what did that mean? And it's like why I love like certain directors' films that would just use like Stanley Kubrick, because he's like kind of like the icon of to talk about. But like a lot of times, I think he would open up a door for you, and you would go, why was that there? And what
Yeah.
did that mean? And then you start to finish the work yourself. I mean, how many visual
Yeah.
video studies have you seen on? I mean, again, I'm just using Stanley as an example because he's so.
You're lagging up for me.
Oh, can you hear me? Robot time.
Yeah. Now I can hear.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. Now I can hear.
Okay, yeah, I gotta love technology, and you're all the way on the other side of the world too. So Sweden.
Yeah, man. It's sick.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
like there's you sort of plunging into a deeper level with your art, or like it's not just a visual piece.
Mhm.
Like there are probably a lot of categories to play with, or
Infinite.
like you can wow someone with something really cool, like something technically really cool, or you can make something that's kind of simple, but that makes people think,
Mhm.
and there are probably endless possibilities.
Endless. That's what's so cool about art, right? It's like
Hmm.
it's what's in you coming out. What a crazy thing,
Yeah.
like a fascinating thing. And I think that when we, and this is just me again being an artist and devoting my whole life to it, is when you remove all of the like the human, like needing to eat and sleep and procreate and all these things, when you remove all
Hmm.
of those things, really what you are is just a creator. You're just creating, and you're
Yeah.
communicating. Because like let's talk about piano. It's a form of communication via a musical instrument. You're pushing
Hmm.
emotions if you're doing it right. you
Yeah.
can you can just play it around and stuff, but when you're really playing it, when you're actually
Hmm.
finding the melodies from within, let's say like
Yeah.
Mozart, for example, like Mozart was just using a high level of communication to convey emotion. Is another form of language, as
Hmm.
I feel it. But I think art is the same thing in a lot of ways when done correctly. Again, I'm
Yeah.
imposing a lot of my own opinions of art. I feel like art is a very high level, and it's very important and very special. But that's because I dedicated my life to it.
Yeah.
It's fascinating stuff. So,
Definitely.
but
Yeah, man. I love piano. It's definitely like that language thing you're talking about, like with Blender too. Like another, like being able to flow and like use it. Um, that's what I really like about piano. Like sitting down, there's always this sort of nagging feeling like I need to play piano right now to
mm,
sort of relieve it,
mm.
because like melodies or feelings in my head, like you can just sort of play them
Isn't that
on
crazy?
the piano.
You
Yeah,
can't say them in words, but you can play a piano
right.
and get the emotion out clear. How
Hmm.
dimensionally that's we're pretty dimensional as beings. I think we're not as dimensionally as much as I would hope we would be, but showing that is a perfect example of I can't say it with English or whatever form of words that come out, but here is
Hmm.
what I feel like here musically,
Yeah,
which is fantastic. It's
like
amazing.
we all have things that we want to um what do you like show the world or something. Like we need to show that we exist, or produce something of value.
Mhm.
And whether that's through like the English language or through some sort of art medium, or through anything,
Mhm.
I think there could be some deep thing pulling us to express ourselves.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
like maybe piano is the best way to express that certain feeling, or maybe visual art is it's different.
Or maybe it's a big mix of all of them, like certain things for piano is like, I mean, you wouldn't say you're hungry using the piano, but you could convey a certain level of happiness or sullenness with the piano
Mm,
probably better. And I think that's why we universally will go in droves as an audience and just watch somebody perform some sort of work of piano or music
Yeah.
instrument, and we can just be absorbed in that emotion and that
Mm.
wavelength, which is fascinating. Yeah, that's really great that you have the yearning and the urge, because that just shows that you have a pursuit, I feel. And
Yeah.
nothing better in life than having a pursuit.
Hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. Because if you have an intention
Definitely.
and a pursuit, do your are your family, are they creative as well?
I'd say so. Yeah. My dad loves, like, he's pretty creative. He does a lot of coding,
Mm.
like sort of a
It's
lot of
another language.
things.
Mm.
Yeah, exactly.
Mm.
My mom likes to paint.
Mm.
And I mean, yeah, we're pretty creative, I'd say.
That's great. I mean, that's good to live in a house where it's celebrated. Yeah,
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 definitely.
and understood, because it isn't. It's a kind of a unique thing to do art at a young age at the level that you're doing it. I think it should be celebrated, obviously, and pushed and motivated and inspired upon. So that's good that you
Thank
have
you.
that, and it's cool that you have the support and the lifestyle to be able to do that, because not everybody's has
Yeah,
that, and to know that not everybody has the ability to have these kind of things. It's really good that you have support that will allow you to basically
yeah,
make the work that you do, which is great.
definitely.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
mean, if I wouldn't have gotten access to like a computer at such a young age,
Hmm.
probably, might have missed the whole Blender thing, or, whatever.
Yeah.
Um,
Are you happy
so for
with
that, I'm very fortunate.
are you happy with where you are with your work and where you kind of have come from in the process?
I mean, right now I'm sort of at a weird state, I feel.
Mm.
Or I don't know, there's just a feeling that's kind of always there, because things are slowing down for me right now. Or that's what it feels like, because I'm spending more time on my projects. And there's other stuff going on in my life too. Like, I have to focus more on my social life and school and things like that, because
How's that going?
it's going a lot better
Mm.
than, uh, a few years ago. Like,
Yeah, because you're a COVID child. Yeah, that's tough because you're
yeah, right.
isolated,
Yeah.
and it's a
I
very
mean,
important time of your life too, socially.
right now there's not any isolation, but like the COVID numbers are going up again. I have no idea.
But I mean, what I
Um,
mean is, I'd imagine Sweden was just like the rest of the world. Kind of everybody just isolated themselves for like a year or two.
well, not really, because Sweden was kind of weird. We sort of said no to that.
Oh
I'm
wow.
not very, sure, but we did have like homeschool, or not homeschooling, but social distancing school
Okay.
for like half a year.
Okay. So that
Um,
was it. So then you were around other people and friends and stuff. So yeah,
um,
somewhat.
but like during that time, I was kind of lonely,
Mm.
and I only focused on Blender during that
Mm.
time, which is really
Mm.
good for my blendering and for my creativity.
Sure.
But it's not in a good mental space, and I was not doing very good in school either.
Mm.
So
Everything
that has
has a
gone a lot
cost.
better.
Yeah.
Right, exactly. The vector thing. I'm
Mm.
moving using all my force in that direction, and
Mm.
it's pushing me further in another direction.
Yeah. Well, there's only so much time and energy, right, on the trajectory.
Yeah,
And it's really rare. Some people can have multiple trajectories in life, but that's often only if they have the support from others, meaning they can clone themselves into other people. Directors can do that
yeah.
where but that's a whole social game, you know.
That's like using your your strength to like affect others,
Yep,
so they can help you, sort of like warping the world around you to become
basically. I think
better for
Steve
yourself.
Jobs used a quote, or he would say this thing, and I think it comes from Star Trek, reality distortion fields. He would take a
Hmm.
reality and then he would distort it, but he wouldn't do it himself necessarily. He would just surround himself with people that would facilitate his
Yeah.
vision. Um,
You yourself, you can't really do that much on your own, but
there's a
you can manage other people, and combine the forces.
yeah, like you said, like there's a ceiling, right? Like you're hitting it
Right.
with certain things. You're like, oh wow, like there's a certain level.
Yeah.
when we look at, like, let's say Alberto's work, like when we look at it intrinsically, we
Hmm.
want to believe that everything is coming from within, but it's a team
Yeah.
effort, if you think about it,
Yeah.
with an incredible director who has got probably the best in this space. I would say, like, the dedication to his craft and the art and stuff. And I really need to get him on because it's hard to talk about his work without him explaining his work.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
and I don't want to, and if Alberto, if you're listening to this, I don't want to misconstrue anything either. Cause like, I'm too much of a fan of who he is as an artist and a person to deflect anything. But, I only bring it up because we mentioned him, but
Hmm.
if you think about the work, he was doing independently solo, and then the magnitude of work now being attached to teams and having,
Yeah.
100 people underneath that momentum, when we look at the final work, there's nothing short of amazement. And you think about, like,
Yeah.
a musician, for example, let's say like the band U2 or Metallica or whatever, like, of course there's them, but there's an army behind them that's moving a city
Hmm.
to make those events happen for us all to experience, So
Yeah.
have you thought about that? Like teaming up with people or becoming more of a director, or like, I mean, this is probably bigger thoughts, and I'm taking notes down too. So when I'm typing, I'm taking notes down of things you said, because I want to come back to the fear of unknown and slowing down.
Yeah. Yeah.
But have you thought about like expanding, making a team potentially, or having people work with you?
Well, like right now, I'm sort of I'm doing school and things like that. So
Boo.
yeah.
Just kidding. Nah, school's awesome.
Well, I'm not sure whether I should go to college or not. Like I'm not really sure, but I'll be deciding that later. But like, there's definitely pros and cons
Mm.
with both options. But it would be really cool. Like my dream goal is just traveling everywhere and being with friends and like doing my art. But I'm not sure how that'll be.
Mm.
Like
What do you mean?
doing client work
Mm.
in a couple of years will not really. I'm not sure how that will be. Yeah, like having artists doing the visuals for a big company where you could probably use AI or something like that.
Maybe.
But we don't know how it's gonna be.
No one does.
Yeah, but like having your artistry, like there's still something special with being a human.
100%.
And like if you are able to um, like get value for your art and not for the art itself, like having value in yourself,
Mm.
I think that's pretty important to be able to live the dream of like doing whatever, but still creating art.
That's it. Well, you already figured it out, man. That's it. I mean, that's what I think. That's what I
Mm.
know. It's a universal truth. All of the work this is how it works for me. And I think I might have mentioned this on the podcast, but I spend a specific amount of time on client work to make sure that I feed my family and we get bills are at bay. The rest of my time is my time, which is for me to fail and succeed and to do my own things. And from all that, all the passion projects come, and all the passion projects then fuel everything else, because you put that out in the world. And sure, we definitely will dig into AI art, because I'm really fascinated, because you are a young artist and you're coming out in the space, but you're also at a certain level. And I'm really curious, because all this noise is happening. But to touch back on the idea that you're thinking about potentially going to college or not, it's very fascinating for me to look at what you are doing now and where you might want to go. And if your goal is to travel and do your art, I mean, you could 100% do that, But
Yeah, I think if I put enough effort and time into it, I think I'm not really that worried like about the future, because I just know that I'll be able to achieve what I want if I just really put my mind to it. And I think that's really true for a lot of people, not all people. Like you need to have the resources to put down that energy to travel like in the right direction. But you just need to do it as well.
Yeah, and good point, because not everybody can achieve those things. And I think that when you mentioned luck as being a factor of your success, and I would equate a big percentage of my success as being lucky as well, being being in my time and being where I'm at in the world and
Mm.
financially being able to like scratch out some sort of existence.
Yeah.
But it is true. Like, the one thing I like to look at and think about is like Da Vinci, for example. Like, he's an artist that often comes to mind because I don't look at him as an artist. I look at him as a human being because I've studied him.
Hmm.
And Leonardo, Da Vinci, he, in my opinion, he went through the master apprentice program and had a lot of failures in his life, but a lot of successes, and ultimately he was just a very curious, hardworking, driven person. But the key of him was curiosity,
Hmm.
and I think that's really the essential part of the artist creation, which is being curious of the world and
Yeah.
filling your art with like answering your curiosities with your work. You know.
Hmm. Like, I don't think we humans can just, or I don't know, but like, I wonder if we humans can, without having a goal, having some like, when I look back at like history, like we have tried, like we are creative because we try to accomplish something
Mm-hmm.
in the world, like whether that's engineering something that's going to make life easier, or whether you're trying to convey a certain emotion, or um like AI art. Like, if we all get replaced by robots, so we eliminate all the pain and suffering, there will only be sort of pain and suffering, I fear. But I'm not sure. Like, we can't know. Like, I've had a lot of interesting discussions
Mm-hmm.
on Discord with people about this, and everybody's so divided. Like, some people
Mm-hmm.
think that it's gonna go like really bad and that it won't work, and some are really optimistic.
It'll do both of
And
those things, I think. Yeah.
yeah,
It's killing.
probably.
It's killing and giving birth at the same time. That's why it's so
Right.
divisive. It's literally
Yes.
killing and giving birth at the same time. Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, there's apparently like more jobs getting generated than jobs getting lost or something. Uh,
Depends on how you look at it. Yeah. I
yeah.
think that's why it's intrinsically connected to the human condition because it's doing two things at once, two very friction based things, which is giving birth is very friction based and killing
Hmm.
is very friction based. And I think it's intrinsically connected to us spiritually because it is so divisive and so disruptive. It's getting us to think, hey, making a shiny, beautiful thing is no longer the goal because the machine can do it
Hmm.
better. So why are we doing what we're doing? And I think a lot of people just get lost in doing things for the wrong reason. I think so. I think they're doing it
Hmm.
for fixing past trauma or trying to resolve some sort of emotional thing that they went through using art as a device to kind of get likes and follows to feel some sort of place in this world. But when you get past that, that none of that shit matters.
Hmm.
What matters is what you're doing, why you're doing it. Um, and I guess that's also a thing. That's what art can be therapy. So I don't know. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. What makes art, like, what is the right reason to create art?
there is none.
Or is there?
Yeah.
Yeah. Like,
Yeah.
would you be doing art if you were the only person in the world?
I think at this point in my life, yeah, I think I'm just going to do art the way I'm going to do it. So let's get into the AI thing because I've I've been on all the beta for this stuff. I've been using it for a while. I saw the wave
Hmm.
coming like a year and a half ago or so. I was like, oh
Yeah.
shit, this is a huge thing. And I
Hmm.
was telling people, but they were like, yeah, yeah. And now it's like, oh shit, it's here. I'm like, yeah, it's like, it's really insane. It's a paradigm shift. It's a paradigm shift on all levels. And there's been so
Yeah.
many things that's happened with digital art, like authorship via NFT technology, blockchain. That's a whole nother thing that being connected to some sort of like really volatile currency that's all new and being tested constantly. So that shifts art value all over the place in regards to digital
Hmm.
art. But now the AI thing, which is just wild. You mentioned you have a lot of conversations on Discord and I'm sure at large. What are some of the takeaways that you've had when kind of like getting a broad picture of this whole space?
We don't know how we're gonna adapt to it,
Mm.
as it's such a significant change. Like, it feels almost unpredictable, or it is unpredictable, but sort of impossible to predict
Yeah.
what we'll do and how we'll adapt.
Isn't that great though? Because we should never be comfortable and think that we can adapt and know the future.
Yeah.
You set your trajectory, right? Let's talk about the vector again. On the
Hmm.
vector, you're going, I'm going to make this jump, but I'm calculating by all of my calculations that if I make this jump and put this much effort, I
Hmm.
will land here.
Yeah.
But the AI, boom, and there's no landing, and you're falling.
Yeah.
But it's up to you because it's your trajectory to say, now I'm going to make new rules. I'm going to create
Mm.
0G rocket boosters or whatever. And then this trajectory can go wherever I want.
Yeah.
I think that's what I'm
Exactly.
saying. It's coming down to who you are, what's in you facing adversity, and what can come out of that. You're either
Yeah.
going to go crybaby style on it, or you're going to go, this is awesome. This is a tool. It doesn't
Mm.
really change the way that I work, So I don't know.
Yeah. I was gonna say something.
Trajectories, vectors, reactions.
Yeah. Um. Yeah, I forgot it, but it was something really good.
Damn it, Will. Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
No, but it's
damn it, me.
interesting.
Okay, it'll come back, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Well, I think we were saying that there's this unknown, right? And
Yeah. Oh, right. So like I think it's sort of pointless to think about um the technicality of things,
mhm,
or like um try to calculate how we will react to it, like, because we just don't know how we will react to it.
it's too big
Like,
of a problem. It's too big of a.
yeah,
It's too.
exactly.
It's cognitively would take too many cycles for you to even conceptualize it. And by the time you've finally kind of conceptualized a little bit of the view of it,
Hmm.
it's it's changed. It's like looking at
Yeah.
a fractal that's kind of shifting. You're like, oh, I want to freeze it. Or like looking at the ocean going, I'm upset about that one wrinkle in the back of the wave over there. It's like,
Hmm.
that fucking, it means shit. It means nothing.
Yeah, I wonder how we'll react. Like, things are going so fast
So
nowadays.
fast. Yeah. So rapid.
Like, I'm only watching like YouTube news if it's like 1 day old, or something like that.
Yeah.
Um,
And even
and
that's
like,
biased and wrong. Most
yeah, like,
likely.
will it be will like the world be moving too fast for us to get a grasp of things?
Yeah. I think it already is. I felt like it's been moving too fast for a long time. And I think simply because there's too many humans and there's too much chaos going on. There's people dying right now. There's people living right now. There's people being born. The chaos of life is just,
Yeah,
it's insane. We're
right.
designed
Like,
around like 100-person tribe. Like if you think about it, because think about how many people you've interacted with and encountered in your life, and that's really common. Like for a human experience to have like potentially 5 to 10 close friends, and then some family members, and then outside of that you
mhm,
have secondary levels, and then it's just
yeah,
it's mind-boggling that there's this many people on the planet with the chaos that's going on.
yeah. It's just like a pulp. Like, there's just you can't grasp it. Like, you can't really put anything. You can't really organize things.
No.
Like, yeah, it's really interesting. Like,
Yeah.
trying to we want to understand the world, but it's changing so fast, and things are true and false at the same time. It
Yeah.
almost feels like.
Well, that's all based on your perception of reality too, which
Yeah.
is again connected to like your personal snowflake experience of life, which is
Mm,
ever changing and melting and reforming, which is like it's
yeah.
insane. Yeah, I mean, yeah, sorry, I think with this stuff it's just fascinating. And also like, things like YouTube are an echo chamber too, because the algorithm feeds you what you want. So that's also biased, and
Yeah.
it gets really scary because if all of a sudden you start watching a certain thing, you're just get more of it because it's
Mm,
based on the design. You can't blame the design of it, but it is happening so rapidly. This is what I would take
yeah.
away from, because have you used Midjourney and have you used the tools yet?
Yeah. I've used Dolly, Midjourney,
Mm.
all that. Haven't tried Stable Diffusion though.
I hear Stable Diffusion is really interesting as well. What's your takeaway when you make something in there? What does it feel like to you?
It feels like I'm getting free. It feels a little too good almost.
Hmm.
Like, I'm just getting free art. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, I guess that makes sense because there's just like millions and millions of art pieces, or like images, and all of that energy is being able to to spit out new things.
Hmm.
Um, So it kind of feels like free energy almost,
Hmm.
a little too good to be true. But it doesn't really have any like, it just floats there. It doesn't have anything built like backing it up. Like if you have a real art piece, there's like an artist behind it. But it um say like, if you have, I don't know how many like images it's gotten trained on, but let's say
I
it's
think
like
it's in the
100
billions.
in the
Yeah.
billions,
Yeah.
really, right?
Mm.
So the value of that, say you have an artist creating an art piece or taking a photo, that the value of that is one, like one human. And then you look at the image getting spit out by an AI, and that's like one divided by a billion,
Hmm.
sort of like that.
Yeah. Do you feel like it's your work when you do the prompt art?
Mm, I'm not sure. I don't think so. But
Mm.
then it
Just
will
being
probably,
honest.
yeah, I haven't thought a lot about it.
Mm.
Um, um, it feels like I'm just, giving directions. But, I guess that is,
It's like a
being
director.
a director,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah, you're directing a multitude of artists, and then you get the thing. Yeah. Well, I mean, this is what the core of it. I mean, you said it perfectly. I agree. That's when I started using it. I was like, well, this is weird because this
Mm,
is what it's doing. It's for me. It's taking my ability to touch the art, and I could be completely wrong, but I like that suffer part as much as I hate it and
yeah,
complain about it. I like being able to go through that process of
that's the weird
making the
thing.
work. It is
You,
weird.
you,
Yeah.
that's the off-putting feeling, or because we need the suffering. Like there's always a balance between suffering and, like, you can't be happy with having been sad before, because if you're only happy or at a level that's not fluctuating, that's just doesn't really work.
Yes, a life that's filled of variety is a life that's lived.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think that's what art is. And I think art, when it's really doing its thing, is it's connected to that. And as great as it is for, like, say, commercial purposes, because if and you're in this wonderful place in your life because you don't do client work, right? Or do you do client work
Yeah,
a
I
little
do
bit?
like once every million years.
At 16 years, it's just crazy to
Yeah.
think you have a million years of experience. But yeah, so you're not connected necessarily to this machine called capitalism and art and all this kind of stuff, which is,
Yeah.
it's, I'm going to tell you now, it's a beautiful thing that you're not, yeah, your work isn't attached to it yet on
Yeah.
multiple levels. Because when your art can survive through that machine, it's almost a miracle. And
Yeah.
this device is made perfectly for that machine. And I think it's accelerating because of our consumption rate. We're all consuming
Mm,
so rapidly of everything around us. We're all
yeah.
overdosing on it, Like, when's the last time you just sat and looked at something and just sat there and
Mm,
observed something? It's a very rare thing, for me, even, like, and I love doing that, and I understand the process of it. Like, what's the last time you sat and watched a film and didn't look at your phone, or went out and looked at a sunset and didn't take a picture of it? Every time you're not experiencing something raw, you're just not experiencing it in a lot of ways.
mm,
Like,
yeah.
I often don't even take pictures of shit because I'm like, the cell phone photos look shit anyway, so what's the point? Like, it's cool just to capture, to say, like, I was there and that's the moment, this is great, I can't wait to think about it later. But ultimately, we're going to
Yeah.
look back at these and go, like, yeah, I don't know, it's just capturing memories
Mm,
and stuff, which is really, really wonderful as well. But um, I forgot where I was going. But the AI thing, I think,
mhm.
yeah, like, when you're there and you're making the art in quotes and you're putting in prompts, it feels really odd to me.
Yeah.
Yeah. And at the end of
Yeah,
the
you're
day, I
taking
just,
you're
oh, sorry, go ahead.
you're taking out the suffering. That's like that's the thing. Like, as I was saying before,
Yeah.
it's just weird, and I wonder how we're going to adapt to that. But I guess we're taking out the suffering all the time. But that doesn't work though.
Yeah.
Like, we can't, like, yeah, we always sort of normalize our stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if you compare the lives we are living today to the lives we were living like 500 years ago,
Yep.
then we're going to be like so much higher up. But we still sort of normalize it between 0 and 1.
That's right. Well, you mentioned it, fear of the unknown, and you mentioned that that's more important now than ever. But I would argue that it's always been important because the
Right.
whole human experience is based on fear of the unknown, fear
Mm.
of death. When's death going to happen, and
Yeah.
when's life going to happen, and when all these things. And I think that's intrinsically connected, you know. And I think again, this is just this huge, bigger spiritual discussion to have, because when we start to really, and that's why I love this. I love that this has come in and completely wrecked shop. It's because it's
Yeah.
basically it's uniting a lot of people, dividing many people, and I love that because people really need to be woken and shook up, not
Yeah.
woke in the form of it is now, which is very annoying in a lot of ways. But you know what I mean.
We
But
need to get a take a step back.
mhm.
I feel like
We
that's
always
really
should have been.
important with all things.
Yeah.
Like it applies to everything. Like there's so many people who are just like really zoomed in and
Mhm.
like really focused, and sort of you need to always know where you're at in like the whole. There's a name for it, or that I'd like to think of it. Like when you're doing AI, you can sort of plot it on in a space.
Mm.
Um, and there's a name for it.
Mm. I like
Um,
to think of it almost like, well, you don't drive now, but you can imagine you're driving a car.
yeah.
You can either sit in the comfort of the car in the seat at the driving
Mhm.
wheel and take control of the car, and you have the air conditioning on. You can adjust everything to be as comfortable as you like. Or
Yeah.
you can be sitting in a passenger seat and let other people drive you. Or you could be putting your face in the ground as it's driving along. The people that are zoomed in, they're putting their face right on the ground. And I'm like, why are you doing that? You're just causing harm to yourself. Like, there's no
Mhm.
need. I get it, because a lot of people want to suffer through things and they want to feel like why. And again, when we talked about removing suffrage, I think that there's masochism and then there's suffering, and then there's like there's a level between the two, you know. But that's what I felt when I encountered these softwares, which was like, this is cool. When I first started using it, I got instantly addicted to it because I was like, oh, it's just generating so much, and it's just
Yeah.
it's like a Google search of the future. It was like the first time I encountered Google. I was like, wow, what about this and what about that?
Yeah.
But I instantly, after about a week, I was like, oh, okay, and I just started going back to doing what I wanted to do because I realized
Yeah.
there wasn't a. Did it happen? Does the same thing for you?
Yeah, definitely. I was like hooked. I was just doing it over and over and over, and it was so cool, And then, yeah,
Mhm.
it doesn't have any value
Is that
for
why?
me.
Is that why you
It
stopped?
just it feels just like plastic, or it's not. Yeah. Um, so like it's cool on the surface, but there's nothing underneath.
The quote is from you. AI art feels like plastic.
Yeah, I put that in the title.
Yeah, but I mean, I mean, yeah, I think, and what's interesting is a lot of people are entering at different levels right now. So like, you have people that are in first encountering Midjourney right now, and they're going, "Holy shit,
Mhm.
I'm an artist now."
Yeah.
And then you have other people like ourselves who have gone through it and go, "Well, I'm an artist beyond this. Like, this is really cool, and I enjoy this whole thing. This is cool, but
Hmm.
I can go beyond this, or I need to go beyond this." I would imagine you get fulfillment from making your work in a. I guess we can consider this an old version of itself, like an old way of using art.
Yeah.
Would you use because this is one thing I've been looking at it, and I've been talking with friends about this, is I would almost start wanting to use it, stable diffusion, and feed it my own work only and have it generate things
Hmm.
to almost be like a clone of myself, giving me other ideas. Like, this is what a future version of my art would be, is like, if I make, let's say I'll sculpt some stuff, and maybe after this podcast I can show you some stuff some stuff
Oh
I'm
yeah.
working on, but go ahead and I generate like a bunch of paintings or characters and stuff, and then I
Hmm.
feed it into stable diffusion, let it run overnight. When I wake up in the morning, I have like 100 options, and I go, oh, this is interesting. Like, it's
Yeah.
just feeding off of my art, not
Mhm.
because obviously, I mean, I got to say it, the unethical quality of this thing is appalling and it's disgusting, and it really needs to be fixed. By using all of these people's art, myself included,
Yeah.
unethically is bullshit, and charging for it is garbage.
Yeah.
So,
You shouldn't be charging for it. I think
yeah. Well,
that's
they
sort
said
of fucked
it's
up.
for study and all this. That's all bullshit, though. Yeah. So, but feeding it your own art, like let's take like all of some key frames and ideas from Impetus, for example, and you're
Hmm.
grabbing frames and things. And let's say you spend the day and you start to render a couple scenes, you take those and then you feed it, or like a character, and you just feed it into the machine, and then it kicks you back all of these like versions of it. You go, oh, I like a little bit of that, a little bit of this, and
Yeah,
then you kind of
for
use it to
inspiration.
100% inspiration, or give you motivation even too. Like, I didn't think about it turning red there, and oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a weird thing to see, and then it kind
Right.
of, yeah,
Sort of
that's the
extending
future.
your imagination a little bit.
Yeah, it's like having a version of yourself like working with,
Yeah.
which I think ultimately that's actually how I'm going to start using this tool more.
Mm.
Haven't used it here, just same as like not using Blender. It's just like I already have a path of suffrage that I like, and adding one more path or angle to it's like I don't have a thirst for that personally, because it doesn't impact the final outcome. Not to say
Yeah.
that it's not, you know, uh, of importance or anything, but yeah. But yeah.
It's interesting the like if I think about Impetus, like I've been trying to achieve photorealism and the effects of, a camera taking a photo,
Mm,
sort of. Um, so like if I would just say take a photo of a bunch of cigarettes laying in like a puddle,
yeah.
you know, at face value, sure, it's a cool shot. But it's just an observation of the real world taken. Like it doesn't have the same value as me like spending a lot of time like creating that shot, observing myself, and trying to recreate it by hand. Um, so like at face value, they're the same, or not, not exactly the same. But if I would completely recreate it, like me recreating it is a lot cooler than just pressing a button or clicking a shutter.
Yeah. Well, again, it comes down to what you value most, and I'm on your team when I agree that that's the truth, and I think that's why photography has had such an uphill battle in regards to proving its value to the world, because of that
Hmm.
exact statement. Because a lot of times, on the other side of things too, a photographer would say like, well, I was there at the time to capture that moment that doesn't ever exist there for after and there
Yeah,
before.
exactly.
And then that it was also an inspiration for the work that you're doing, which is a study of reality or something, for example.
Hmm.
But and then on the other side, it's like, no, I have value to this because I actually created all the things. And then we go, this is another argument I have intrinsically with a lot of digital artists too. It's like the one question I always get is like, did you model that? Did you texture that? They're
Yeah.
asking all the core things, and I go like, at what point do we realize that that doesn't matter as much as the thing, And
Mm,
I think that also comes down to other artists imposing their value on others just to make sure that they're validated. You know what I'm saying?
yeah.
Yeah, which I
Yeah,
get, I
definitely.
understand too, and I also acknowledge and appreciate. And I can totally see why people would want to, impose their value, and I do it myself just to kind of clarify, you know, where I'm coming from and is this fit for me? That's why I think the conversation of AI is really important too. I
Well,
can't
it's
wait for
just
you to become a
another.
photographer. This is gonna be great. Yeah, I'm looking at the
it,
shot that you're talking about. I was bringing it up when you're talking about it.
yeah, well, it's just another step then in the ladder of progress, because I mean, taking a photo is not the same thing as observing the world and recreating it in a 3D program.
Yeah, it's a whole nother thing. Yeah,
Right.
yeah, yeah.
So then creating something with AI is just another thing, but it's just surface level. I think
Yes.
there can always be something like, let's say you take a like the photo of, like, say Earth, like the pale blue dot.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's just, sure, it's a cool photograph, but someone could recreate it or create an even cooler photograph. But it has actual value behind it, like
Mm-hmm.
something sort of under the face.
Mm.
And I
Or
just don't get the same thing with AI generated art.
yeah, yeah. Well, I guess it all comes down to why, you know. And I
Yeah.
think that's fundamentally the reason why we should be talking about it, because why are you using it? If you and this is something that I said globally is that if you're using AI art to
Hmm.
create calmness mentally for you, and you're using it as a device to quell like mental illness and stuff, like I'm 100% behind that. If doing this thing
Hmm.
gives you happiness, but the moment you do it as an exchange of currency and start entering this into capitalist systems,
Yeah.
then you can't. I'm sorry, you cannot do that because it's unethical, because what you're doing is you're taking from other things without compensating, and that is wrong. And
Yeah.
the people that almost always suffer are the artists, always be, and that's because artists are raw, artists are exposed, and artists
Hmm.
are very they just like, you know, we're exposed human beings, you know. And always
Yeah.
musicians, writers, creators of all sorts, you know, artists, visual
Hmm.
artists, digital artists, traditional artists, all these things, you know. But yeah, I'm really surprised that you're not a photographer, or you haven't gotten to photography yet. Because if you say you're really wanting to travel, so that when I used to travel, and I would get really not angry, but I would get very fussy emotionally,
Hmm.
because I wasn't able to create. It was very
Yeah.
frustrating for me when I travel, because I'd be like, I need to draw or create or something.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then as soon as I got a camera, it was almost like a pacifier to a child. It was like it quelled. I was able to just capture it,
Hmm.
and then I fell in love with it. And then I got into anamorphics and building my own camera systems and all these things.
Jeez.
And then it's a big black hole. Like everything that you do, if you have intention, you'll find, oh, this thing to that thing, and then all of a sudden it's
Yeah.
just, yeah, like there's a
It all goes so deep. Like if you
always,
look at anything,
yeah,
it could be a subject matter, it could be a real thing. Like you can just keep zooming in deeper and deeper and deeper. And you just
yeah,
realize like fuck. Like
yeah,
get a new perspective on the rest of the world. Like I guess that's why people say like the more you know, the less you know or whatever.
yes. And
Compared to
ignorance is
everything
bliss,
else.
but it's
Yeah,
also stupid.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really want to get into, but taking photos with my phone, um like uh I don't really know where I was going, but um I don't really find anything that I want to like capture around where I live.
Mm.
But I guess that's kind of stupid because you can find a good composition everywhere and like a good image.
You
But there's
can.
something extra with
Mm.
traveling somewhere new, and traveling somewhere beautiful, or where I find it beautiful, that I actually want to take photographs of, like
Yeah.
capturing those feelings.
Yeah. Well, it depends on how you're going to evolve with it. When I first started getting into photography, I thought the same. And then I realized there's a photo everywhere if I'm willing to see it.
All right.
And then I
Yeah.
started realizing that then up my game personally. I was like, oh, wow, like it's all here. It's just a matter of how you use it. And oftentimes you're using one light source. It's the sun. So it's so
Hmm.
simple and it's so beautiful. And then you realize, oh shit, for my CGI, I just need one light. Oh,
Yeah.
to make something beautiful, I maybe just need 2 or 3 lights maximum. You know,
Yeah.
a lot of people get caught up with all these other things, like all these big setups and this and that.
Hmm.
I started studying cinematography and cinematographers and their approach and negative fills and bouncing lights and all this kind of stuff. And I realized, oh,
Hmm.
wow, like there's a way to be so poetic with this kind of work and really
Yeah.
find a beautiful image within everything. And then when you find a cinematic moment in life, you go, wow, what a blessing. You
Hmm.
know, I was recently with a friend of mine. I had him on, he's my friend Anthony. He came down and him and I just got in my truck and we took our cameras. And for like 5 days, we just drove the truck all through Southern California and we captured some of the most amazing things. And when I was sitting there, I was almost crying. I was so like humbled by nature. We were watching the
Oh.
sunrise and the lake was lifting all the fog. And it was just
Oh,
like,
gee.
it was just a cinematic,
Hmm.
I looked at Anthony. I said, I think this is my religion. I'm not a religious guy. I don't, you know, I think this is my faith. It's like capturing God or nature or whatever it is. It's just
Hmm.
seeing it and observing it and using it as a thing. So
Yeah.
yeah, I think it's going to be so special for you. And I can see it in your work too. And I'm so excited for that because yeah, your work is intrinsically, you're like a modern day photographer in an interesting way by using the digital camera, which is the computer
Yeah.
camera. Just really crazy. How do you
Right.
find your compositions? Because let's talk about impetus. And actually, I'm going to share my
Hmm.
screen and I'll just show you what I'm looking at because we'll look at the same thing here. Let's see. I don't know if this is cool. Let's go through some of the, like, how you
Oh,
kind of
definitely.
discovered things, more or less curious about it. And I'm sure fans of your work and people that are getting to know you right now are probably curious as well once they start to understand where your work comes from. But you mentioned this shot, for example.
Yeah. Um, oh man, I wanna show how that shot was looking. Like before, like all the shots I do, they look so bad. I mean, that's the case for everybody,
Mm.
but they just look so like really, really bad until you sort of, you hit it a few times until it, starts looking good.
Mm. What was
Um,
the turning stage for you? Was it the lighting?
it was completely rethinking it
Mm.
because my original idea was a sort of cyberpunky lighting. Like there's
Neons and stuff.
a street shot later on,
Mm.
and I thought I was gonna have like the same sort of environment. Um,
The one
and
where
like it was
this one?
no, it's a guy standing with the cigarette. It's a little yeah, there it is.
Mm. Mm.
So it's sort of this lighting,
Mm-hmm.
um,
Nighttime
and it
neon.
just looked
Yeah.
yeah, it just looked really horrible.
Mm.
Um, and I don't really know exactly why. Um, like and I had a completely different like composition, and you know, you couldn't. I really like the muddiness in the water here.
You're putting us in the water and the mud too, which is interesting. And what you're
Yeah,
saying is also interesting too. That's why it's so
um,
powerful. Yeah,
yeah.
where the
Well,
old is dying, the new is yet to be born. All these dead
I,
ashes and stuff. Yeah, nice.
I like the opening being the lily pads, and then having the
Mm-hmm.
same camera movement. Just cutting harshly into you know where we are right now with the cigarettes in the mud and everything.
This is design then, right? You did
Huh?
this. You did this. You designed that movement for us, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Good.
Exactly.
This is what I'm
Um,
talking about. Again, connecting and sorry to keep interrupting, but you're starting to play the magic, which is
yeah.
you're taking, and this is just me observing your work and being a fan of it and seeing you evolve. It makes me so excited because you're playing this game now, which is what you should be doing, which is how can I push people's emotions and how can I get them to
Yeah.
think about things, and let me put you in the mud with me as I say these words. And how do you feel?
Hmm.
How does that make you
Yeah.
think? Yeah.
Yeah. It's really fun playing with that. Um,
Yeah.
but like I'm struggling a lot with what I'm gonna be doing next.
Okay, let's talk about that.
Because we can go through the shots
Oh, you want to go
if you
through the
want to.
shots? Let's go through the
I
shots.
mean,
Yeah.
yeah, that's fun.
Yeah. Okay, let's do that. And then I have it on my list too to talk about what's coming, because we should talk about that, because that there's always a feeling after an artist
Yeah.
makes something. When you empty yourself out, then you have to fill
Hmm.
yourself back in. There's always this thing where you're like, oh man,
Right.
I have to fill it up. But we'll get into that. You want to talk
Yeah.
about this shot?
Um. Okay. So there's. It's kind of hard
Don't feel like no,
to.
you can
Yeah,
move
but
me
I'm
around.
thinking about it.
Mm.
Um.
Not
I
every shot
mean,
has to have a meaning, or you have to know it too.
I mean, if I'm gonna rank the shots, I would say this is my least favorite one
That's actually good to
because
talk about then.
yeah, and I'm not really sure why that is. Like, it doesn't really have. It's sort of just setting the stage for and setting like the mood of the like the scene that comes after it.
Do you think
To
and work on paper when you line these up?
yeah,
Okay, good. I was gonna
yeah,
ask. I do the same thing. Yeah.
I love doing that. Being
Mm.
able to
Work in the
like
real world.
sketch a whole forest with just like a few strokes
Yeah.
versus placing every tree.
Are you
It's really cool.
left or right-handed?
I'm right-handed.
Right-handed. Okay. And do you have a sketchbook that you keep with you often,
Yeah, I
or?
have. Yeah.
Mm.
Just where I write things down, where I sketch things,
Mm.
come up with shot ideas. I
This
like to
was a
just
sketch.
create hmm?
Sorry, you'd like to create what?
A storyboard
Mm.
before where I'm in the stage of finding a new thing.
Yeah.
Um,
It's like a
but
bookmark. to your mind. That's how I
Yeah,
look at it.
exactly.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it
I
helps you
will
come back to
often
it.
I will often get like sort of fake motivation, or I'm not sure if
Mhm.
that's sort of, how I interpret it, but I will get like I got it a few days ago. I was browsing Pinterest. Like Pinterest is
Mm,
how I that's how I nurture my creativity,
yeah.
honestly,
Hmm.
among other things. So, but like just browsing ideas. But I got into that flow where I saw an image, like, oh, I really like that.
Hmm.
Like maybe, and then I sort of sparks the story in my head, and then
Hmm.
I sort of scroll past that, and I see another image, and I kind of add that, um, and I get this feeling of oh, this project is going to be great. This is going to be really cool.
Hmm.
But then I think about it for a few minutes or like an hour afterwards,
Hmm.
and then I realize, oh, this doesn't really fit together. Um, I don't really have an actual plan. It's like it's really hard to describe it. And then
Hmm.
I try to storyboard it down, and I'm realizing like fuck, there are human faces in this idea. you know, uh,
Yeah, dude, the uncanny valley. Yeah.
yeah, man. I bought a face scan from what's it called, the 3D
3D.
scan store. I was like,
Yeah, that's a great resource for us. Yeah.
yeah,
Hmm.
it was really cool.
Mm.
Just I didn't really have much of a plan, but I just messed around with it.
MetaHuman's
And
also quite impressive too. Does that work for Blender? MetaHuman?
I'm not sure. I haven't really looked into it much. Like I
Mm.
kind of used the website thing when it came out,
Hmm.
um, but it looks like a game.
Hmm. Yeah, same.
But that's probably just because that's what I'm focusing more on, the real world, I guess.
Yeah.
Um, so that's sort of how I will judge things.
Yep. Yeah, you look at the real world and go, this looks, yeah, like this still doesn't look right. And I agree too. It's
Hmm.
all in the details because you don't have to be a professional artist to know when a human doesn't look right because you're a professional human because that's your
Yeah,
reality, so which makes it
exactly.
easy. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm
I
curious though,
mean,
and I think we all, I do the same thing, or I used to. There was projects that I used and built based off of the, like, using Pinterest as a spiritual guide.
hmm
And if you think about how AI works, it's kind of doing the same thing. It's just
yeah.
faster, right? It's gathering all the references. It's got the prompt,
hmm
which you have in your mind, which is I need to be inspired, and then you go and find these weird things, and you assemble. And through this demulsification of your imagination, everything that rises to
Yeah.
the surface is what is lasted, and everything else goes to the bottom, and then you just keep iterating on top of that. So I think that's why it's so
That's
demoralizing.
I actually, when talking about impetus, I kind of forgot about it, but I used Dali a lot for inspiration in the
Mm,
beginning.
there you go.
Um,
So
See
you're
if I
doing it.
can.
You
Yeah,
have
there were
some of
some
it.
really cool images.
Mm.
Um, I don't know if I can
Yeah, if you just want to share your screen,
share
I'm
them.
just
That'd
capturing
be
this.
cool.
Yeah,
Yeah, we'll just have to find them first.
yeah, no worries.
Uh, but that was really cool being able to kind of look into my mind and get inspired by that,
Mm-hmm.
and sort of iterating. Like, yeah, it's really fast to get a like you can have sort of thoughts and ideas that are kind of vague,
Yeah,
and when you actually sort of, yeah, Dolly and Midjourney help to sort of realize your ideas. See if you have an idea in your head,
yes.
you think it's really cool, and then you type it in, and it's like, okay, that didn't really work.
Which I guess it comes down to you knowing what you want intrinsically at the start of the race.
Yeah.
And then because what you're doing now at the level you're doing it, you're able to cheat the method by, like, not cheat the method, but like you've managed to bend the program to your will. Oh, I understand how
Yeah.
water works. I have this raft thing that I got off this asset, or I built this thing, and I know
hmm
how light works, and I know how to expose for this, and let me make
Yeah.
this composition better. And also, this aspect ratio is wild. It's like a cube. It's like the one. Is it a one
Well,
to one?
no, that's, I think it's 4:3, or it's
Yeah,
IMAX.
it's
I'm not
IMAX. Okay,
sure.
yeah, yeah. Are you doing some
Um,
Hoyt von Hoytmeyer style stuff? What's going on here?
no, but
Yeah.
I saw something in IMAX.
Mm.
I don't remember
No,
what it was,
you sat there
but
in
I
the
was like,
dark for hours and didn't remember what it was. What happened to
no, it
you?
was Dune. Sorry. Um,
Oh yeah, yeah, man, Dune. Oof. what a
That is so impressive.
oh man,
Uh,
big
you've seen
inspiration for
Avatar.
me. I've not watched Avatar, but I mean, Dune I watched like I think I watched it like 3 or 4 times. Usually I watch Greg Fraser's cinematography at least 2 or 3 times and I first get it out, especially in theater because it's all coming at you
Yeah,
at such a level. Yeah.
I think I've watched Dune like 4 or 5 times, to be honest. It's
Yeah. You
it's
could watch
so
that movie on
inspiring.
mute and just get all stoked on it. It's like,
Man,
yeah.
just seeing. Okay, I didn't really find a lot.
I'm trying to get Greg on the podcast. I'm really excited
Oh
about that. He's a very kind, nice person, and it'll be
man,
really
I
great.
can
I'm gonna
imagine.
bring up all the shots and be like, explain this one. How does this?
Yeah,
Yeah, like, but yeah,
man, you got to do that for me. I've said, like, when I was doing Volta, I
mm.
was pixel peeping all your shots, man,
It's too
for
kind.
for the answers.
Mm.
It's really cool.
That I think that's when I mean it's what's interesting is there's always a level in which we're students to one another, and I think that that's what makes it really great. Like
Yeah.
let's talk about Greg for example as being a huge inspiration for me personally. Like Greg Fraser's cinematography is
Yeah.
how he observes the world and bends light to his value
Yeah.
is just wonderful, and it's so important that he is doing what he's doing by chasing his own vision. And it's also so
Hmm.
important for you because those two first shots that we were talking about in the beginning, when I first saw that, I was like, okay, yes, I'm getting energized from this. It's making me go, because sometimes I'll look at something and my personal interaction will be like, I'm competitive. I want to be better. And then sometimes I
Hmm.
look at stuff and I just go, I'm just inspired. And it was really cool, man. I had that exchange. It was really wonderful. Like by seeing the
Thank you.
piece, it was those two shots. And I just love how, like, in a world where you have every tool,
Hmm.
CGI, you're going, let's distill, let's get down.
Yeah.
And that is a mature movement, in my opinion. I think when you have every tool and you're not going like whiz bam, bang, boom, and lens flares and all this stuff, it's like that does
Yeah.
nothing for me. But a still,
Mm.
Tarkovsky style shot where you're just looking at something like, hey, observe this, sit here and look at
Yeah.
this. It's beautiful. Yeah.
Thank you, man.
Yeah,
I
man.
really appreciate it. I
Please
found
continue. Yeah. You found some stuff?
some dolly thingies.
Oh,
I'll
cool.
just scroll through them.
Yeah,
But
if you want to share your screen, there's a little, if you want to, if not, no worries.
yeah, absolutely. I'm not very
So they're on the
good
bottom tab.
present.
There's this
Okay,
little square with an arrow, and that'll have the ability for
right.
you to share your screen. You just tell it what screen to share.
Is this working?
Yep. Yeah, it's coming through
All right.
now.
So
Nice.
I mean, I've actually generated a lot of images
Oh yeah,
when
me
I
too.
when I
Like
look
thousands. Yeah.
um like these sort of like prompts, and I
Mm,
don't know really how I came up with them. That was just a thought, and like all of this is sort of
so wild.
like you can. This is sort of what inspired
Yeah, that was a
the
great shot.
shot.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You did a breakdown on that one too, as well, right?
Yeah, I've
Mhm.
I've actually documented a lot of the process.
Good.
Um,
That's going to be
and I
really key to future art in the future, showing that you actually created it. I
right,
think in
yeah,
documenting it is going to be attached to, if even because like NFTs is a bad word now because of the madness in the world, but I think
hmm
once that goes past and we really start to understand like digital art does have value and that the only way to value it and understand it is like documenting the process. So it's so good that you're doing it now. In my opinion, I think it's really important.
yeah,
Yeah.
yes. I just need to cut some stuff together and upload it, I think.
Sure.
But
Or just for your own
it's
self, like time lapses of you actually making the work to validate that you
yeah.
actually did make it. Yeah.
Do you record yourself? Like, do you record a tutorial for yourself when you're talking
Tutorials,
about that
yes,
earlier?
and then sometimes I do. Oh, there's some examples of that one shot you were saying was
Yeah,
fading. Yeah.
exactly. And
hmm
I got these images
mm
that were looking a lot better than what I was creating.
mm
Um, then we got some. I tried to create like for
Fake
the
ads.
one where
Mm.
yeah, exactly. I'm not sure if I
The bus stop,
don't
right?
think I used yeah, exactly.
hmm
I'm not sure if I used any though.
The irony that you're making false ads using AI to put in a
Yeah,
false this, and it's just like there's levels to this that make it's just so
yeah,
funny. Yeah. What also just goes to show like how ironic all of this stuff is. Like I said, to touch
hmm
back to the fact that like you're in this wonderful state in your life where your work has not been somewhat demolished, or because this is my opinion. As I'm almost 40 years old, I'm searching for
Mhm.
the child again. I'm always going like, what's pleasing my inner child? Like, because as a kid, I
All
would
right.
just draw and create. That's all I cared about. Like,
Yeah.
and I'm always just searching for that. What's fueling me? Now I'm in this weird
Mm.
stage where I've finally kind of gotten past it with the client work, where I've made enough of my own work out there
Hmm.
that clients are just like, just do your thing, and I'm able to
Yeah.
go like, just leave me alone, pay me the money, and I will do something special. And but that's a very really rare thing. It's taken me 10 years to figure out how to do. It could be faster for
Yeah.
you and anybody else too, but
When I get client work, that's just like I haven't gotten a lot of client work that I've been doing. But like when I get like just do whatever you want, I feel like that's kind of hard because
mm,
I don't know. I just need to have more experience with it, I guess.
mm,
But like there's sort of a pressure to really create something good,
yeah,
and
there should always be,
there's yeah
but yeah,
that
not a
like
lot of
trying
room for
to
failure.
one up
Yeah,
yourself. But there's always
mm,
something sort of special when I'm doing my own work
yeah,
that really isn't there
mm.
uh, when I'm doing work for others.
Yeah. Well, it's a different fuel, right? It's a different
Hmm.
mechanism, because when you're doing work for yourself, you're just going, well, what does Will want today? What is stimulating Will today? What's making you happy? Are you excited? You
Yeah.
curious? What things are you consuming? Okay, at what rate are you consuming them? And
Mm.
what's motivating you? But when it's with the client, you go, I don't know this person. I don't know their
Right.
values. I don't know what they like, what they want.
Yeah.
And sometimes they can be so aligned with you spiritually, and sometimes very much not. And you get
Mm.
into this weird position where, oh, I don't know. Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I do change a lot of my shots.
Mm.
Like
In the process when
there's
you're making it.
yeah, but
Would you?
sort of in a bad way, but in a good way too.
Mm,
Like, say the client would have wanted that cigarette shot with the neon lights.
mm-hmm.
I need to pull up the actual
Example between the
the
two.
renders.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I have a few stills. It's kind of fun. Um, but if the director would have wanted that,
Mm-hmm.
you know, then I would have just had to settle with a worse shot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Um, but I guess then that depends on the director.
Well, unless you're staunch about it and you're unforgiving and you go, I don't want to move from my quality, and then you can do
Yeah.
that. But then you're that one of those like fussy people, and they might not hire you
Mm,
again, which is also
yeah.
not a problem if that's what you want too, which is also super tricky. So,
So here we have. I mean, I can. This is the. Oh, does it not show?
I
Wait, I'll
see it.
just. Do you
Oh,
see that I pulled up an image?
no, I'm just seeing your
Yeah.
Windows Explorer.
Yeah. I will.
This is cool. This is like a show and tell. Nice.
Yeah.
For those of you that are listening to the podcast, make sure if you get a chance to watch some of it. I think it's pretty cool because you'll be able to see the visuals behind it.
I do see my
Yeah.
screen now.
That delicious Volta sauce. Yeah. So good,
So
Will. So
this was
good.
like the first thing that I started creating. But
Mm.
I guess when I was doing this project, that's something I like to do. Just sort of. Let's see if I can fix this. Right. Sort of experiment with something to
Mm.
sort of give me a jumping off point.
Mm-hmm.
So like in this case, it was trying to create this cool clothing piece,
Mm.
like this character. And then like depending on how that turns out, I will shape like the rest.
Mm.
So this is how it was looking.
Wonderful.
Um,
This stage is so beautiful, huh? You must be like, yes, this is like so fun, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Well, you're building a world. Yeah.
I had this,
So good.
but this is ungraded.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, this is
Yeah. Okay, I
the
see what you're
shot.
saying. Well, the
Yeah.
camera angle is different, and this is okay. If I'm looking at this, I'm deserving it. The reason why
Mhm.
the other shot works so well is because of where you put us. You put
Yeah.
us in the dirt, in the mud,
Mhm.
and you were like there. This shot doesn't have it because again,
Yeah.
compositionally, it's not telling that story intrinsically connected to what your theme is. So,
Mhm. It doesn't feel. It doesn't have the right feel.
well, because
Um,
it's not supporting your main theme,
yeah,
really, right?
exactly.
Yeah. Which I mean,
And
it's
then
nice, but it's like, what is it doing? Yeah.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of technical, like weird things, like the water here. That's like Blender is sucks when it comes to water and doing things like that.
Yeah.
So you have to
Is it
sort
just
of,
the specular bouncing? Is that what it's having a hard time with, or what?
yeah.
Do you get
I,
a lot of artifacts and
and
stuff?
not a lot of artifacts, but
Mm.
just inaccurate images, I think.
Oh,
Like,
it's calculating the GI incorrectly.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Mm.
Um,
So good,
but
dude. Yeah.
this, you can tell which shot I kind of put the most time into, which is I just want to show that
Yeah, that was crazy.
things they look really bad for a while.
Well, I mean, okay, let's get to that too. Like things look really bad for a while. To most
Yeah.
people, they're done here. But you were like, nah, this is not right. So what is the motivation, inspiration, and desire to go beyond this? Like,
I
let's say
think I
this is
just
in, for example, I'll pull up the
I
other
think it's just that I trust the process. I've
Mm,
just learned to, you just need to take a, like, one step at a time. Like you're yeah, sort of like stepping into the unknown or whatever.
mhm.
Um, because I've done it so many times that I know that if I put a lot of, enough, the vector thing again, like enough time and effort, and I just do it, like put that work into the right direction,
Mm.
it'll turn out good. But then most of the time is spent on trying to figure out the right direction.
Yes, which is really fucking awesome that you think like that because it's so important. What you say on this part of your film here is as we forge ahead into the great unknown. Again, and you're talking about the process, the unknown, art is never done or is it done? And what an interesting view of a normal life precision to say something so profound and interesting. Again, intrinsically connected to like what makes this so interesting because you're showing me something and you're telling me the other thing and then my brain's going, what's he trying to say here? And
Yeah,
therefore I'm finishing your art. You see what I'm saying?
exactly.
Yeah,
We
you're
want
allowing
to
me in. Yeah.
we want to work a little bit. Like
Mhm.
we need some suffering in our life, or
Mhm.
like that applies to art too. Like if I just give you the answers and give you the whole thing,
Mhm.
um, that's not as fun as you letting you think a little bit.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I would say so because I think when you're really doing, and again, these are all subjective opinions of how I look at my art, how I look at art in general, and the value of it is.
Hmm.
I'd say I love it when my art gets somebody to think and get somebody to have a memory there, and get somebody to really kind of fall into what I would like them to fall into in a sense, you know, like,
Hmm.
and also steer them into a certain direction. Go because you can beat somebody on the head. It's like let's say like a Tarantino film, like he has a lot of
Hmm.
layers, and
Yeah.
I can appreciate and respect his art form, but I'm leaning more towards like a Terrence Malick or something. I like those kind of films personally because I like not being beaten in the face with the theme, you know, which is fine too. I
Right.
think I'm not trying to say Tarantino isn't an incredible powerhouse master filmmaker, but there's just different things, you know,
Yeah.
different people.
I
So,
personally really like Tarantino,
mm,
but like I have to watch his films a lot
mm.
to sort of appreciate it, just personally,
He got a lot of layers
because
in his work. Yeah.
yeah, and there's just he provides a mood, and he provides, sort of, for me at least,
Mm,
like a place where I could just kind of relax.
mm.
That's something interesting. Have you seen Memento?
Yes, of course. Yeah, it's a
Yeah.
big inspiration for me. Hmm.
Like, it's sort of uncanny. It's sort of like weird. Like the whole place is kind of, weird.
Hmm.
Um,
By design.
but yeah,
Hmm.
but I kind of like that off-putting feeling. Like
Hmm.
that sort of, it feels like kind of relaxing. Like I could just chill out there, even though it's so like weird and uncomfortable.
Mm.
There's some comfort in the uncomfortable,
Yeah, yeah,
and that applies to Quentin Tarantino as well.
mm. Yeah.
At least for
Well, that's what I mean. Of course, I mean we're saying this continually. We're trying to like predicate and say that hey, you know, like these are our own opinions, but that's why we're here. We're talking about our experience on Earth and what we like, and
hmm
not to say one is better than the other. It's just what we experience now. The thing I love about films is you can watch it at age 16 and you can watch it at age 40, and you'll have a completely different perspective because your life
right.
experience. You go, wow, I've experienced that, or that's a weird thing, or that brings back a weird memory, or
Hmm.
you know, and therefore the art form of movies when they're really well done is they're ever evolving. You know,
Yeah.
Even like popcorn films, can give you like, oh wow, like I grew up
Mm.
watching Beetlejuice and this film Beetlejuice, and when I watch it now, I'm like, well, I can't believe this film was even made. It's crazy. But even Star Wars or
Yeah.
these kind of things, these touchstone cultural like phenomenons that they kind of
Hmm.
evolve with time as well too, which is fascinating. Is this something that you would be
Yeah.
interested in doing, like getting further into like film, like making films and
Not
stuff?
sure actually. Like there's
Mm.
something I really enjoy about having all the control myself.
Yeah.
But then I haven't really done any like actual collaboration with other artists.
Oh, not yet, huh?
Uh, yeah,
Mm.
I sort of fear it. Um,
That's beautiful. I'd say don't if it doesn't work for you. I mean, you're a new filmmaker, really, if you think about it. Like you're on this weird new voyage where, actually, weird's not the right word. It's you're on a new voyage. Um,
mhm.
you're using the tools and stuff that all these other directors and things that we've watched. I was watching Apocalypse Now last night, and I was thinking, what if, a future version of himself could make that film with it just by himself? I wonder what that would be. And maybe the
Mhm.
variety is what makes it so good. Sometimes I think I'm on that fence where I feel like some of the projects that are the best are because it's combined with a lot of people, and some of them that are worse are because it's
Yeah,
combined with a lot of people too.
you need to be able to manage all those people. Like
Social
you
game.
can like Alberto Miego again. Um, he is able to take all the hard work of all these people and channel it
Mhm.
like in the right way
Yeah.
and not scatter it, and you'll get a really high power at that point.
Mhm.
But if you're not able to do that, it's just going to be scattered.
Yeah, you're intentionally get lost. Yeah, and especially with somebody, your age and your skill level too. It's almost like, if personally, I would suggest you just keep doing your thing on your own terms, finding your own truth, because it's
Hmm.
it's just going to be really interesting. You're in this like interesting case study where you're not influenced by the capitalist system of corporate work, and then you're also not doing work with others. You're just really isolated. It's very interesting. But I will
Yeah.
say that once you find a good collaborator, your work
Hmm.
will grow exponentially. My work has grown exponentially from meeting certain key people and working with them in
I can
intimately.
imagine.
Yeah, like I mean, Carlos and I feel like we feed off one another and we push each other so hard because
Hmm.
we're trying, like, and we have a very healthy competition where we would say like, make me cry, like I want to cry, like, oh, make me so angry I'm gonna cry, and we would constantly pushing each other to be like,
Yeah, yeah. How
and
how do you guys work together? Like, what is your process like?
well, right now we just did a really special client job together for the first time, and
Hmm.
that was like just friction free. I mean, the job
Ooh.
was difficult, but between him and I, it was just so,
Hmm.
I did my best to bring forth my best efforts, and vice versa. But when it
Hmm.
comes to like passion projects, like the Make Haste Corp stuff and the Veneta
Yeah.
stuff, Carlos and I are 2 days apart in age, and we're very similar in a lot of ways, which is really weird. We have
Right.
a lot of similar tastes and stuff, but we
Uh-huh.
also, he's from Spain and I'm from America, but we have different
Hmm.
cultural upbringings. But again, this is just my opinion. And but when we do MHC stuff, we both pick a car or a thing that we love, that
Yeah.
we both agree we can put our energy into, and then we
Hmm.
just do that separately in the sense of, okay, I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that. I don't know, like let's say like the last builds we did was, my dream car is a GT40
Hmm.
and his dream car is a Nova, and we just would work on that and get inspired and by one another, and we don't impose on one another unless one asks. So we
Okay.
never say like, oh, you should do this.
Mm.
I always ask like, oh, would you like an opinion? And then we're
Hmm.
almost always like, yes, please, because we
Right.
know that we're coming from a pure source. I have other friends that I've worked with that are just like, they just start telling you what they think, and I don't give a shit,
Yeah.
because sometimes I don't want to hear it, and I know that's also really rude of me, but at the same time, I simply do not care, and I don't want to hear
I
it because it,
see.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's interesting. I thought you guys worked, so you're working separately,
Then we
but then
combine.
oh, okay.
Well, so we work separately in that level, and then when it comes to resources and stuff and developing certain
All
things,
right.
we will combine assets and like merge
Mm-hmm.
through and push through, and we'll sit there and have a talk like, how do we want
Mm-hmm.
to represent these? Do we want to do it in daylight? What's the stage? What's the setting? and then we start to kind of
Nice.
develop that and work through that process. And then anytime we hit a snag, mostly me, because I'm like, oh, I can't figure out this thing, because I'm new to these different, like, I'm actually pretty new to CGI in this way. I've only been doing it for a certain amount of years, but like, and again, contrary to like Carlos having been doing it for so much longer, so I'm constantly asking him questions. But what's fun is I've been developing my own failure system where I'm finding different things, and it's giving variety to both of us, which is interesting too. So, but yeah, so in the cars are separate because those are our things, but assets and core values as it goes through, and how we
Right.
grade. And I'm a big fan of like film emulations and grading. It's like, because you take a raw render, it's shit. You need to go past the raw render, and you need to understand what that means, and how to actually take because I understood this from photography. You take a photo, the raw data is so lacking. So the grade process, and you're gonna experience this too. It's like there's two photographers. There's one that captures the photo, and then there's one that edits the photo. It's a whole different process.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The grading process for me it takes a lot of time, a lot of iterations, because the colors can have such a dramatic impact on how the shot is perceived.
It's massive. Yeah. When you distill down an image, let's say you take an image and you blur it. Let's say you use Gaussian blur and you just look at it compositionally. Okay, where's the weight here? Is it high contrast? Is it dark? Is it light? Where's my colors? Are the colors dominant? What am I saying with these colors? I think that's why we mentioned like Denis Villeneuve's film. I'm sure you've seen Blade Runner. He used color significantly through that film to push your emotions almost dominantly. But grading is massive. It's huge, and it's the final. It's the final like 5%, but it's almost equal to 50%. Because as you mentioned, it's an exponential curve, right? You can be really great, but you can fail at certain things, and then you just look shit. But I've been studying. So when like even a good example is like when Mache and when he did Showtime, and he was getting into that, we started really studying like how anime shells are drawn, and then like the photograph aspect. So and it's photographed, it's front lit, and it casts a little bit of a shadow underneath it, and all of these things, like paying attention to every little thing, and then recreating it, and then evolving it, and finding the tool to do so at the best capacity. And now I just use DaVinci Resolve because it's got a really advanced skill set. So
the compositing, or
just for grading,
Okay.
Yeah, have you used Resolve at all?
But I haven't delved very deep into it. Like I use it for just video editing, or like putting the shots together and doing the sound.
It's fantastic.
But I think I use After Effects too much, because
After Effects is great.
Yeah, it is great, but it has some flaws. So it's very slow for
that's the biggest
certain
flaw.
shots.
Yeah. I mean, it's a very slow program. It's based on archaic program. It's an archaic program basically. It's Photoshop that moves. And Photoshop is the granddaddy. It's been around forever. So but Andrew Kramer, for example, like a friend of mine, and he's incredibly exceptionally talented. He took that software and really just made it move. And he's still doing that. He's still evolving that tool set. But so, okay, let's get that. So you're talking about grading. You're using, so you'll render out something from Cycles, is it right? Is that what it's called?
Yeah.
Then bring it to After Effects and then go to Resolve?
Yeah, I touch on Resolve, at the end. That's I have all the shots in After Effects where I do the grading separately for each one.
Lumetri?
And then Lumetri Color.
Yeah.
And Film Convert.
Yeah,
and
Film Convert's good. Have you seen Dehancer? I highly suggest Dehancer.
They've done a thing for After Effects.
Yeah, they just recently did a build, but their build for Resolve is very powerful. Yeah,
I've tried it actually
experience
in DaVinci, but then again, I don't do it in DaVinci. There's something sort of freaky with DaVinci, but I need to put the time in and learn it.
Yeah,
because I'm just very unfamiliar with it, and things just run so smoothly with After Effects, or at least now.
Yeah, because you're used to the language.
yeah, I work really fast. Like I got that, the flow.
Yeah.
And like their effects, being able to do, layer effects and
Mhm.
things like that.
Yeah.
It's just
It's a
it
wonderful
works a
tool.
little too good.
It's
Yeah,
a wonderful tool when it works. It's the worst when it doesn't, and it's very slow.
definitely. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I was doing like for this recent project, the compositing I was doing was just color work,
Hmm.
maybe some smoke
Yeah.
and particles and things like that. But like past shots where I've have had like tons of elements,
Hmm.
and I've tried Nuke, learning that,
Ugh.
which worked really really good actually
Yeah.
for this one shot I was working on.
Mm.
But it was really big, just one shot I was working on for like a month.
Yeah.
Um,
I don't use that
but
tool on Houdini simply because they're time valleys, and they drive me nuts. How big of a valley suck? It just you're like, oh, this is cool, and then you're like, it took me a fucking month to make this thing, and it's one
mm,
I'm barely there, and you're just like, it's a pro tool though. It's definitely both of those tools are Nuke and Houdini are both like
it just depends on the
yeah
shot you're doing and
yeah
the people you're working on, I guess.
yeah
Like if you need a lot of flexibility
yeah.
in your shots, I guess Nuke is really good. And it's really fast for like for big blockbustery shots.
Too expensive too, I would say. I think that
Oh yeah.
when you think about, and I'm not to be talked down on them, but I don't think that it makes sense. If you're using it for what like it's used for people to make like a living off of um, working in movies, which is a decent living.
Mhm.
So, people in movies industries, they make 150 to a quarter million a year. It makes sense to charge that much for that because that tool is enabling them to have that job. I totally understand
Yeah.
it. But for like novice users, I don't know if they
Mhm.
have a thing, but like I mean, the barrier of entry is huge, and I'm like, I'm not even.
Yeah.
I use Sapphire and which I love for After Effects. Sapphire is wonderful and starts with a B. Why am I drawing a blank? Boris Effects.
Boris.
Really great.
Right. Yeah, I've
Yeah,
heard of it.
yeah, which is great. It's great for like doing all those little things. And these are tools that I got turned on to from Raoul Marx because Raoul Marx showed me a lot of powerful things with using, and he's a wonderful After Effects user as well.
Mhm.
But I also think that you need to find all your tools too, and you need to fail through it because like for years I
Yeah.
was failing to try and find like I was using Film Convert and all these film
Mhm.
and I countered Dehancer and I was like, oh wow,
Mhm.
this is really Dehancer inside of Resolve. It's like the one node that's the ultimate power node that I can kind of run
Yeah, it has
everything through.
everything.
It's really wonderful, and if you know how to use it, because I used to have these really complicated node structures, about 50 different nodes to like emulate
Jeez.
film emulation, halation, and all these different
Yeah.
things, levels of bloom before and post noise and all of this stuff.
Mhm.
And then, but the dehancer is like actually baking it in and it's evolving it based on pixel density. I think
Jeez.
pixel color, because what you
Okay.
do is you lay noise over it. That's not how noise works. Noise in film gets baked in to the film. Like it
Right.
gets baked into the emulsion of the film itself. When you're
Okay.
it doesn't get laid on, so
Yeah.
this thing is actually, if I understand it correctly, is doing that. It's kind of baking it in using
Mhm.
like some sort of like noise filter system that's adapting it naturally to the image that it's doing it to.
That's
And you can
really
adjust
cool.
the noise in 3 levels and shadows, mids and highs.
Mhm.
They actually sent me a piece of their software. So I am kind of sponsored by them. So I will plug the shit out of them because I love them. But it's also
Yeah.
because I only use tools that A, work, and B, have quality, and that they have both of those things, and
Mhm.
really wonderful. So this podcast is brought to you. No, just joking. So. But
Yeah,
yeah, I
man.
would suggest checking it out. So
Mhm.
yeah, simply for those things. Yeah, but yeah, the grading process is so
Yeah,
clutch.
for me, After Effects it's working great. Just film convert, or maybe like the add grain effect, but
Mhm.
it's so slow. It's
Yes.
so slow.
Yeah.
But I like the grain. There's something kind of weird with film convert grain.
Yeah. There's.
It's I don't really know what it is. It's kind of funky. So I just use add grain,
Mhm.
like last step,
Well, that's
and some halation, some bloom, and some of that stuff.
little post sharpen, little post blur, all these kind of things, blurring them in. But
Mm,
the reason why I also use Resolve for that stuff because it's real time. It's
yeah.
going and I hate waiting for renders. There's like
Hmm.
that's I mean, time crime is the biggest crime for me. It's like you can't waste my time,
Yeah.
man. Like give it faster, you know. So,
Right.
but that's
Right.
wonderful. I mean, again, it just comes down to like that's wonderful that you have these tools, and it's also if you think about our art is directly connected to developers of these bigger companies, and they have their own path and destination, and
Mm.
yeah, and it's all humans behind it too.
Yeah.
Some that are selfish and some that are great, and that's why I love
Hmm.
Blender. I love that Blender came in because it just wrecked shop, and all these other programs had to go like, oh shit, there's a free program that's doing better than us.
Yeah.
How do we
It's
get?
really fun to, just once, like a few times a month, I just go to the Blender website
Mm,
and like, oh, a new version. Oh,
mm,
new features, like
yeah.
all the time. It's so
So
fast.
rapid, yeah, so
Yeah.
rapid. I don't think there's ever been a program that's been this advanced in growth ever because it's
Hmm.
open sourced and yeah, bless everybody that's contributed to it. Yeah, because I
Truly.
when I got it, I was like, okay, I'm gonna learn it, and then I just got hit with other work, and I just lost interest in learning the
Yeah.
language. But I had filled up all of the plugins and stuff, and I was like eating all the plugins and putting them there, and then I just never ended up
Hmm.
using it again.
Uh,
You know, to the point of using things, you know, and the value of them. Like I've tried to learn ZBrush so many times, and then I eventually just
hmm.
found my way through it. But yeah, every program has a space for it. Let's talk
Yeah.
about your lull moment, and then you said that you're I don't know, you didn't say this, but you're kind of you've got it all out, and now you're in this place
Yeah.
where you've just released a project a couple weeks
Hmm.
ago, right?
Yeah. It was on Christmas Day, I think, something like that.
Was it Christmas Day?
Yeah, I
Christmas
think
Eve,
so.
maybe? Oh, it was Christmas Day for you,
Maybe
I think.
Chris.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, there's a difference
There's a time difference.
between
Yeah,
the.
Sweden and San Diego. Um,
Hmm.
so you got you, and how long did Impetus take you to make?
Uh, Too long because
It's never too
no,
long.
always too long. No,
That's
but
true.
uh, maybe I thought about it. I think it was like 3 months
Mm,
or something. Yeah, um,
that's not
which
bad.
is for me, but like I have been making longer, or like I always try to up myself,
Mm,
of course,
sure.
um, and make longer and longer projects,
Mm,
or like bigger projects. Um, but it just takes more and more time. So it's in a sense I'm evolving, but in another sense it feels also like I am devolving when it like comes to time.
mm,
But I know it's not true because you need to have spend more time to create better things.
yes. Yeah.
But there's always that sort of nagging feeling that like I often look back at like my really old things, and I was like making a new project every week or something.
Sure.
But they were really short and they were not really advanced.
Yeah. And they're also they don't have lasting power like this one's gonna have.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Hmm. Some of the best directors they just take forever because like
Hmm.
and some of them just pump them out. It's just there's no
Yeah.
right or wrong, but it depends on what you want to have in regards to legacy. Yeah.
Yeah,
That's tricky though.
exactly.
It's tricky to manage. Yeah, and then being
Hmm.
hard on yourself never helps as well. So, but at the
Yeah.
same time, that's the fuel. You know, that's the engine to get things done
Hmm.
faster, more efficiently. Um, but you've emptied it out, so yeah, it's a beautiful place to be, though. The place where
Right.
everything is new again, and you're kind of like, well, what's next?
Hmm.
And then you have these touchstones of other projects that you built upon. So how like where's your brain at? Like where's your mind at now?
Um, I'm trying to find ideas. I'm browsing Pinterest. I
Mm,
need that, like, I feed off inspiration, of course.
yeah.
Um, and I'm looking for things that can get me inspired. It's like some sort of random kick.
Hmm.
It's really like a chain reaction. Like I see this one thing, like that's really really true. I see like one thing,
That's it.
and then that really just like kicks off,
Yeah, lightning
and
bolt.
it's yeah, and starts sprouting from there.
Hmm.
Like it's really like getting an epiphany, like the
Hmm.
the lightning, or no, the light bulb effect.
Yeah.
It feels like that exactly.
Well, if you think about it, the idea is inside of you. It's just a matter of letting it out. You know.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Because usually what you'll find is the thing that inspired you is actually what was within you the whole time,
Mm.
which is totally fucked. So it's just a matter of getting it out and then finding a method to get it out, like using a tool of inspiration of some sort, like watching a movie or having a conversation with a friend or reading a book or
Hmm.
whatever. It's usually within you, and just finding it. But yeah, that's a cool
I
place to
I
be, though.
often feed off the fun, or like, yeah, the fun of the process, like the
Mm,
process.
mm,
That's really something I really love.
mm,
Um, um, so I always try to find something new. Like if I can find a way to use this physics simulation thing, or like if I can do clothing, like this like, yeah, doing simulations is really fun. Like if you have an animation or something, and then you just throw some cloth, and then like maybe some hair, or like maybe some particles or something,
mm.
that really, elevates that shot.
Yeah,
But it's the, like, using a new tool, or like doing something new,
yeah.
and then seeing the results of that new tool, I
Mm.
guess, is something that really drives me. But like,
Gives you freedom, right? Gives you more
yeah,
freedom. Gives you more.
yeah, exactly,
It's like adds complexity to your image. Yeah, gives it
yeah,
more because life is filled with it.
exactly.
Complexity. Yeah.
Hmm.
Mm,
And it gives me another boost to keep working.
mm,
And when I'm working on a shot and I'm getting the reward while I'm working on it, like that just boosts the rest of the process. Like there's more chain reactions that keep exploding. Um,
it's a drug.
uh,
Yeah.
yeah,
I
exactly.
I say when you're the drug and the drug dealer, it gets really interesting. Yeah. Because it's literally a
Yeah,
drug.
exactly,
You're just dumping dopamine into your system constantly when you get inspired. Because
exactly.
when you sit down at the computer, there's nothing that existed except a blank void. And then when you leave the computer and there's something there that you can be intrinsically
Hmm.
connected to emotionally and proud of, I mean, what better thing is that? That's it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're creating something
Yeah.
with value. That's literally like pretty good.
Yeah. It's amazing. It's a beautiful place to be. So what's next for you?
I'm really interested in characters, in people,
Mm. Mm.
because that's something I have, sort of shielded away.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Um,
We hide away
because
from
they're
that in the
so
CG
hard.
space.
Yeah, man. I'm not gonna do a CG, because the worst thing is doing a CG face and it not looking
Hmm.
like the best thing ever,
Yeah.
because it has to be.
What about
Like it has to
deepfake?
be.
Why don't you get into that?
Oh,
Yeah.
that's a really good idea, actually.
I mean,
That's
it's the
really cool.
bridge. It's just the bridge.
True.
Why not do that? Because I
Yeah, I
think
saw.
there's no way for you to really do. I don't think you would be able to find the resolve that you were after unless you cover the face all up and
Mm,
stylize it. You can do like the Miyogo approach, which I think is like stylizing the reality.
yeah,
But if you do deepfake, if
exactly.
you want reality, deepfake is 100% the way to do it, I would say.
Probably.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a really good. I haven't really thought about that.
Mm.
And they're pretty easy to do now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because you can
Um,
make like a CG character and then throw a deepfake on the face if you have the right setup,
mhm.
and there you go. Yeah.
Like I'm trying to search for a cool feeling.
Mm.
Like there could be whatever. It
Yeah.
could be, but like a cool feeling, like the sort of, I'm kind of leaning towards doing something that's not peaceful, something that's more chaotic or
Cool.
more action based, because seeing like a character, like there's one shot in Hibaro, um where the girl is like sort of like moving on the ground
Mm-hmm.
next to the knight,
Yeah.
and like her legs like interact with his body,
Mm.
and like it just looks so real.
Yeah.
And that's something that really inspires me,
Mm.
and like getting that effect, but through something else.
Have you seen the behind the scenes on how they did that? A lot of those things.
There's a four animation clip on YouTube, I
Yeah.
think.
Yeah.
It's all hand animated.
Yeah. He hired mocap dancers, artists that, and then I think they keyframed beyond that to stylize it. I think that's what it is. So again, I would say the same thing. If you're going for a human thing, you need a real thing. So deepfake is probably the best way to do the face. And then in regards to body, you probably
Hmm.
want to hire a good mocap thing or get a Rococo suit or some sort of thing where you can get the basis. Because so many things we take for granted, the nuance, when you have nothing and you start from nothing to create
Yeah,
humans, like there's so many intricacies to what makes
yeah,
something real. But if you can have a base get to 90 to 80% there, and then you can keyframe the rest.
It's a hard balance. It's a hard line to walk.
Yeah, it's the hardest. That's what makes
The
Alberto so special. Yeah,
exactly
yeah,
because he's getting like you can't really. I mean, he is compromising on the realism, but
yeah.
he is then putting in the work of getting the essence of realism instead.
Yeah, well, yeah, it's surrealism, I would say, because I think his work is actually more powerful that he doesn't make it real. Because if his work was real, it would be real.
It wouldn't be as cool.
It wouldn't be visionary because of that, in my
Yeah,
opinion.
exactly.
I think it
And
would
that's
be every other thing. And I mean, how many times have you watched a CG short where it's like 90% real human, and you're just like, I mean, for me, I go, oh, cool, that's cool.
yeah.
Like I like it, like I can
Mhm.
appreciate it. But when it's stylized, you go like, oh fuck, why did they do that weird thing, and why is it painted? It's slightly off, and like your
Yeah,
brain's looking for patterns as to why it's different. Like,
exactly. It
oh,
gets your brain going. It gets you thinking.
yeah,
That could be through the technicality of it, the coolness of the shot.
yeah, yeah. I remember when I first was talking to him, I had him on the podcast, and we started talking about his art and his work and breakdown, and I realized that he was actually like, this is a while ago, so this is like Tron. He was directing the Tron stuff, art directing that, and then I was like, how are you doing that? And he was like, oh, I'm just making them all. And I'm like, I just couldn't believe that he was like square by square, just meticulously going through it. And I just realized it was.
Hmm.
I mean, I've not sat there and watched his process, and I don't know how it all works really. But I just when I was looking at it, I said, when all of us are just trying to find the fastest way to get to something, he's going the slow right way, and I think that's what makes his images so rich. And again, to talk about
Yes.
not trying to rush yourself to just have something done, but like sitting with it and letting the art suffer, suffering through the
Hmm.
art in order to go like, oh, this just needs to be a little bit more rich,
Hmm.
And that's why I think
His
Carlos and
his
I work so well, because we're constantly pushing each other to be rich, more rich, more rich,
yeah.
more stuff to
That's the
add in.
thing. His artwork is really rich. It's very compromised. He's taking the essence, the shapes, the exact colors,
Yeah.
and distorting them sometimes to get the right feeling, and just really putting all his work into the things that really matters,
Mm-hmm.
instead of like if you put it's really hard to describe, but if I'm gonna try to create a real scene, for me to actually achieve like a real scene, I'm gonna have to put a lot of work everywhere.
Yes.
But like he somehow is able to like just narrow everything down to the essential blocks, shapes, size thingies, and colors and moods, and just puts all of that work that would have been wasted and just channels everything.
Well, that's a master artist. A
Yeah.
master artist knows where to compromise and when not to, and
Hmm.
knows where to put your eye as a viewer for you to observe it. When you look at
l-
like a Rembrandt painting, what makes Rembrandt so relevant to this day is that he was a master of that. You would say, I don't care about these things. I want you to look at their eyes. That's it.
Mhm.
I want you to feel the emotion of the loss or the sacrifice or whatever. That's what makes his work
A
so
lot of
special.
like intermediate or beginner artists, when they try to create something real,
Mm.
um, like even if they have a good computer, it's running so slow because they are putting their work everywhere,
Yeah,
and they need to optimize it.
that's a good point. I mean, it's so hard to do that and then know that. I think that that's one of the biggest fallouts for a lot of CGI artists is we could, because we have all these tools and we have all these things and all the lights and all this stuff. When you turn everything on and you add all this stuff,
Mhm.
you're really compromising yourself, because you're not,
Yeah,
you know, you're not thinking
exactly.
cleverly. You have to be clever, and you have to like. And one thing about
Mhm.
being is like, not one project is the same as the next. So every time you start, you have to start anew and rethink it and go, oh, how do I get approach this, and how can I add this to the thing?
Yeah,
Like what you're doing is a really ambitious goal of like trying to get into doing humans next. Like
yeah.
that's a
It's
huge
just a
goal.
thought
Well, I mean, it's a wonderful
because
thing to tackle, though.
yeah.
It's very worthy.
Mhm.
Yeah,
But achieving it would be really cool.
yeah.
But I don't think I'm ready
Deep fake.
for. Yeah, that would be really cool.
That'll solve
Getting
it
a
for
deep
you.
fake.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
and
If you could, oh,
I
sorry,
do
go.
need the rest of the animation because I suck at character animation.
We
I've
all
been messing
do.
around with Cascadeur,
I don't know
and
what it
like
is.
it's really you've probably seen it. It's been like around in beta for
Mhm.
like 5-6 years or something,
Okay.
It's this physically based animation software,
Okay.
and it's free to try out. It's really cool actually because
How do you
it sort
spell
of
it?
takes Cascadeur, Cascadeur.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I'll check it out.
Um, so they use like machine learning and physics and all of that smart stuff to just make the animation process a lot easier.
Oh, I like
Um,
smart stuff.
yeah, me too. But like the thing is, like you can sort of figure out how to create a character animation.
Mm,
Like that's not so difficult.
mm,
Like you can do a little bit of practicing and you'll get sort of there.
mm,
But there's like the final touches and like how the arms are supposed to react and like those things that are just empty that you just need to learn.
mm,
And Cascade trend kind of fills that out, and it can check like if it knows if your character is jumping, and it checks like the arc, so that is correct, and the center of mass. You can like just fix these things. It's like really simple.
that's cool.
um yeah, it's really cool.
Huh.
And I
Sounds like you have
think
your tool.
exactly, so that was kind of like I can try to learn that
Mm.
and create like some cool things. Like another holy grail thing that I've been kind of thinking about a little bit, that is like a long one take shot with a character walking through a really cool environment.
Wow, that's ambitious
Yeah,
and
and I
wonderful
think
too.
yeah, exactly. But like then it's less focusing on the emotion, but more like really the love of the art,
Yeah,
like the
or
the
both ways.
technicality.
It's like have you seen 1917, the film? It's
No,
all
or
kind of one take
yeah,
basically.
the one taker.
Yeah,
Yeah.
this is my thought on that too. Is like I don't know if it matters, but I mean Roger Deakins, the cinematographer, he's done so many incredible things for us as
Hmm.
experiencing his work. When I watched that film, I wanted to love it, but for some reason I felt like it was so caught up in the technicality of being this thing that it almost. I like cuts in films. I like when you cut a thing and you push me to somewhere else. I appreciate that. I love edit. I
Yeah.
love when a good edit works.
Hmm.
And the Wonder thing doesn't work for me personally because I get why
Yeah.
they do it, but it felt like a video game, and it was
Right.
weird. It was weird for me, and I guess this is not everything is made for me. Obviously, is not to say that
Hmm.
it's good or bad. I admired and adored that the fact that they made it, and I they're incredible masters of their craft. But the variety of
Hmm.
work, I'd rather sit there and watch any of his films that had cuts to him, like Sicario or whatever. There's a wealth of films that he's
Hmm.
shot. But yeah, that's me. When you get caught up in like it needs to be this one thing, it's almost like the intention suffers unless that's really intrinsically connected to the core of it. I don't
Yeah,
know. Yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
I started watching it and then I stopped because it was for too boring for me.
Ah,
Or,
interesting. Mm. Have you
yeah,
watched Saving Private Ryan?
no, I
Mm.
stopped. I started watching that too,
Mm. And you
but
didn't
then
like it?
well, I haven't finished it,
Mm.
so I can't really
How about
judge a film.
Dunkirk? Have you seen Dunkirk? We're just talking about
No, I
war
haven't.
films. I mean, that's
Yeah.
Nolan's film. That's one of my favorites of
Hmm.
his, personally.
I need to watch that.
But again, I don't know what your films are like. And to be 16 and to observe films, I think that's a completely different thing from me coming from like, I'm before the internet was really prevalent and before cell phones and
Hmm.
stuff. So my interaction with things is completely different. Although I am a 16-year-old at heart when it comes to like observing things, I feel like I'm just constantly
Hmm.
curious and I digest things so quickly and throw them away. And, like everybody
Yeah.
else does. It's taken me like 3 sittings to go back through Apocalypse Now, which is a masterful work of art, but it's a long 3-hour film. So,
Hmm.
what's a film that you've watched recently that you were like, oh, this is really cool. I'm
I
into
mean,
it,
my
or a
favorite
show?
film is probably Parasite.
Oh,
Like I
interesting.
just love that movie so
Oh,
much.
that's interesting.
Um, that's also the vibe of the film. Like
Hmm. Yeah,
if
that's a big
like
vibe.
I yeah, exactly.
Hmm.
Like if you're able to just provide that that feeling,
Hmm.
um, it doesn't really matter if it's unsettling. Like it's not a very comforting movie, but
Hmm.
I still sort of find it soothing
Hmm.
or something.
Have you watched his other
Uh,
films?
I've watched Memories of Murder.
Hmm. Yeah,
Um, I'm not really sure what I thought about that movie
that's great.
because yeah, I need to rewatch it
Hmm.
because it was, such an interesting. I didn't see it coming, the
Yeah.
ending.
It's-
Um,
have you seen like a Killing of a Sacred Deer or The Lobster or anything? These are pretty advanced,
nope.
weird films. Okay.
Yeah, no, I haven't heard of them.
I'm gonna have to drip feed you some stuff and see if you like it. Curious because
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
your brain is again to be at your age to have that taste. Well, I mean to be fair, when I was maybe 14, and I think I was 14 or 15, I saw American Beauty for the first time, and that film really shook me to the core. It made me realize that there was these other films that existed that were touching on things that were far more advanced socially than
Hmm.
most of the films. Have you ever watched that film?
I haven't.
Yeah,
I'll.
I remember watching it in the theater. I was living in Maui at the time in
Uh,
Hawaii, and we had one little theater. And my friend worked the front desk, and I went in there to go watch it because I didn't
hmm.
have. I was one of those. I was bored or whatever, and I just wanted to watch a movie. I
Yeah.
watched it, and I couldn't believe what I was watching. And then it ended, and I said, "What the fuck is this?" And so I went and I just told my friends, "Hey, I'm gonna get something to drink really quick, and I'm gonna go back and rewatch." He's like, "Go for it." I watched it 3 times. It was the first
What?
time ever, and I just was sitting there and going,
Jeez.
what is this? Why am I feeling this way?" And
Mm,
again, I think it's so important when you have films and things that do this to you. It was Thomas Newman's film score, and
hmm.
Kevin Spacey's acting, and everybody, the whole ensemble, the way it was lit, and I'm curious what you think. I don't know if it's aged well
I'll
or
give it
whatever.
a. I'll give it a watch.
I
Sounds
mean, either it hits you
really
or it
cool.
doesn't. Yeah, I mean, like
Yeah.
anything, and if something doesn't hit you, it doesn't mean it's bad. It just doesn't hit you now, and it might hit you in 5 years, 10 years, tomorrow, in a different way.
Hmm.
So yeah,
Yeah. The niche works are the ones that hit the most.
those are my favorite. Yeah,
Yeah.
one of
That
my favorite films is Cure. It's like this kind of obscure Japanese horror film, not horror, but it's like a thriller detective film, but it's just brilliant.
Cure,
Yeah, Cure. Yeah, if you
the
can,
Cure, the rock
I
band.
think well, the
Oh
Cure
right, I
is a
found it.
rock band, but
Yeah.
Cure like just Cure film.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah.
Anthony,
Found it.
he introduced me to this film. It's a brilliant film though. It's very obscure. Nobody knows about it
Hmm.
really, but yeah, that's cool. Okay, so Parasite. What other films? Is anything
I
else?
mean, recently, I get really, Dune
Hmm.
also has that vibe.
What is it
Um,
about Dune? Because like I mean, is it it's the vibe, the energy it gives visually or sonically or all of it
it's
or?
like everything combined, or
Mm,
like the sort of environment it sort of portrays.
mm.
Um, Sort of like I could probably live there, and it would be kind of cozy, or not cozy, but it would be an interesting
You
experience.
would live on Arrakis? You're crazy, man.
Yeah, right. Like
Yeah,
you wouldn't,
yeah, of
but I
course.
still sort of like it, like the aesthetics and things. I could probably like tourist there,
I love the
and
brutality of his work. He's always because he comes from northern Canada, I think Montreal. There's a lot of brutalism sculpture
mm,
in his aesthetic because of that. He brought snow to Blade Runner too because of where he comes from. He puts what is familiar to him in his work, I think,
yeah,
which makes it good.
that's really important.
Mm.
Um,
Super
but
important.
yeah,
It's familiar.
I I liked Dune. Um, it's also just very visually compelling.
Hmm.
It's Greg Fraser. Like every shot is like a masterpiece. It's
Yeah.
really inspiring.
The score was
Um,
pretty weird. I was like, what the hell is going on?
oh, right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's very off putting for me, at least. When I watch it again, I'm like, oh, crap, damn it.
I kind of like.
Which is
I
great. See,
really
there you
like
go.
the score.
Yeah.
Same with Blade Runner.
Hmm. There's no themes to those, really, I guess, but I guess there is. I guess I come from themes, like, because I was raised on John Williams films, like,
Hmm.
like Star Wars and Jurassic Park. You watch
Yeah,
those movies, you're just like, the score is just hitting
right.
on all cylinders. You're like,
Yeah.
fuck, I'm really experiencing a movie right now.
Hmm.
Where in modern films, I feel like the Inception, like that's not really a
Uh-huh.
theme. It's just a sound in a
Yeah.
sense, which is also its own power. I'm not trying to say it's not.
Mm.
Inception's
Yeah,
pretty
it's a different
great
kind of
score.
thing.
Totally, which is awesome too. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Dune is a special one. That's really cool.
And Avatar 2, I've seen it twice in
Oh yeah,
cinemas.
I've not watched it.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, you should watch it.
Oh yeah.
Um, I think I don't it's a long film,
Yeah.
but it's an amazing experience.
Hmm.
I think I enjoyed it more the second time I watched it.
Okay.
because I could just really focus on all the cool things that are happening. Like he's
Mm.
really painting this environment and like this world.
Yeah.
But
Jim is a true visionary. Yeah.
mhm.
Yeah.
I found the story to be a little lacking though.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna spoil
Well, I
anything,
mean,
but
the first I'm like the only one in the world that's like no, it's okay. Like I mean, because Avatar is like I grew up in there was a film that I used to watch as a kid as a cartoon called Fern Gully, and
mhm.
basically Avatar is Fern Gully thematically in a lot of ways. Which not to say anything worse of it. It's just I guess it's my brain wanting more, and that's why I like films that are obscure and they don't tell you all the answers, but they also give you a
Mhm.
lot of things to chew on, which is
Mhm.
probably why you like Parasite, because Parasite didn't tell you how to feel a lot of times. It just kind of said, "This is what's happening.
Yeah.
React or don't
Yeah,
react."
exactly. I
Yeah,
love those films. I
yeah,
think it's sort of I kind of yeah, that's sort of the same thing with Memento, or that's what I experienced because and also Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. I love that movie.
yeah.
Um, but it's just sort of painting this really like cool environment and
Mm,
this vibe. Like I could just chill in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood,
mm,
and it would just be nice.
mm.
And I mean, I wouldn't want to be in Parasite, but
No.
yeah, but I still just enjoy sort of like how you can enjoy like a rainy day
Hmm.
from
Yeah.
the inside, or maybe outside too. Um, like
Mm,
the comfortness, the comforting feeling of like um of uncomforting stuff or
hmm.
something like that.
Well, it makes sense though. I mean, I like that. That's a cool way of looking at it too. Like, it seems like you really let films go through you and like you feel them,
Hmm.
which I think is kind of a compliment to the director if you can
Yeah.
transcend and push yourself into those things, like you
Hmm.
really kind of step into those worlds for them. Yeah. You mentioned what did you mention? Have you seen? Trying to think of a couple other key films that you might be inspired from. Have you seen
Hmm.
Enemy? Maybe it's a little kind of wild film.
Enemy.
Enemy, yeah,
No.
with Jake Gyllenhaal. I got a lot of films for you to watch. I mean,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I thought I didn't really watch all that many films, but I'm really obscure about my films. I just watched The Menu. Have you seen that?
Menu. I think
Yeah,
I've seen it. Is it the
a lot of satire in there, but it's really
the the 2022?
yeah, it's with the chef, but it's mostly like a satire
Oh,
film, but it's really
I haven't seen it.
very good, very unique, and I think it's intrinsically connected to the artistic human
Okay.
experience. So, but
Yeah, I've
again,
been
weird
wanting
film.
to see this.
Yeah, yeah, but yeah. Anyways, I figured because a lot of your work I feel like is inspired and connected to film, cinema,
Yeah.
and those kind of things. Are you
Oh,
inspired by
definitely.
any other kind of medium like video games or anything like that?
I'm inspired by, well, I'm really inspired by, paintings, of course,
Mm.
but
It's like
that's
what
sort of
paintings?
just I think I've just gotten too much inspiration from Instagram and Pinterest.
Mm-hmm.
So, I guess there's not any more classical works or like movies or cinema.
Mm.
Um, it's just sort of the stream that I get fed every day,
Sure.
that I take inspiration from. So, I mean, yeah,
Mm.
there's not any particular other mediums that I um, get that inspired by.
Mm. If you remove Pinterest from your creative experience, how
Oh, it would be difficult.
would it be difficult?
Yeah, I
Okay.
wonder if that's probably a bad thing though,
I
or I'm
mean,
not sure.
no, yeah, maybe. I mean, but again, I guess it's kind of connected to like how you work, you know. So if you're connected
Hmm.
by abstract inspiration, and then you ping pong, and then you basically network out, then
Hmm.
that could be, because I thought about that too. Because I mean, there was a time when everybody was, you could see what part of Pinterest, what reference they were pulling from. And when I look at some
Hmm.
people's work, oh, I know exactly what reference you were using, you know. But then that's a compliment to them, at the same time a slide against them. So yeah,
Yeah.
but
Sorry, just my brother.
no problem. Yeah. But yeah, we
Hmm.
can definitely wrap this up. I can keep talking to you for a long time. It's
No, no, I have all the time in the world.
yeah,
No,
okay.
but
Yeah.
it's a
The
it's a good
Pinterest aspect
conversation.
of things though. Yeah.
Yeah,
The
yeah, you're
yeah.
right. Um,
It's a very relative tool though. I use it as well. Um
yeah, there's this certain feeling when or yeah, the sort of like I find something and then I find something else and then like really rapid
mhm.
like inspiration,
Yeah.
but it's sort of random. You need to just find it first, which can be kind of, and they don't really hold that much value. Like just
Mm,
one image, it can help to sort of spark something,
yeah.
but you still need more um, something that's has more like value, I
Mhm.
guess.
Are you familiar with Cornelius's work? Zomex. He goes by Zomex. He did the
Uh,
astronaut floating in the water.
Cornelius Damrich,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Cornelius.
right? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. He's also very inspired. I mean, again, I don't want to talk to his process, but from knowing him as a friend and seeing
Hmm.
he's inspired, he uses Pinterest as a place to give his inspiration. Then he will use like one touchstone image to kind of build it out. But he approaches his work as I see the photographer Gregory Crutzen. Have you seen Gregory Crutzen's work?
No.
Oh man, I got a documentary to send to you. I think you would really love.
Yeah, yeah,
Gregory
sure.
Crutzen does these. I won't spoil it for you. I'll just send you his
Hmm.
process his thing because it's fantastically amazing. He's almost like us, but he's using the real world. But
Mm,
he's like, oh, I'm going to put a person here. So we would go to person online and put them there, and I'm going to light it like this, and
yeah.
I want this mood, and he'll make these
Uh-huh.
huge, beautiful photographs of like these weird parts of America, and it's just like,
Jeez.
and they're perfectly designed, and I think that his work comes from David. His inspiration, as I understand it, comes from David Lynch's work,
Hmm.
Blue Velvet, I think, and then that work has been evolved, and then so many people have been inspired by his work, and then therefore it's just been
Hmm.
this big thing of inspiration.
We all feed off each other.
Yes, and I think that's what I was trying to say in the beginning. I think it's so important
Hmm.
for us to do what we should be doing because we feed on one another like vampires of creativity almost, So
Yeah.
when somebody's not contributing to it, we all know that they're just lying to themselves and they're not contributing to what I need, which is inspiration, and what they need, which is exposing themselves and what they're doing. So, yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah, man. Well,
Definitely.
yeah. It's fantastic to have met you and
Same, man.
super inspired by what you're doing, and I think it's really wonderful how pure you are. I wasn't sure how you were going to react. It's so weird. I have people of different age all over the place, and usually
Hmm.
the younger people, they don't have a lot to contribute in regards to conversation. Talking to you is like I'm talking to another version, like another 40-year-old. It's just crazy for you to have this. It's really a blessing,
Thank you, man.
So celebrate in it and live in it too, and don't
Really
stop
appreciate it,
learning.
man.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it's a good talk, man. I've
Mm,
been really inspired by you for a long time,
mm.
so it's wonderful.
Well, yeah. Now we're creating a good circle here, so that's really great. So, and
Yeah.
it's gonna go. Now we're gonna be able to spin and be inspired by one another and keep growing. Because
Yeah, exactly.
yeah, if you continue on your course and what you're doing, and like I love that you're thinking about the next one and how you're approaching it,
Hmm.
and thinking about the bigger tasks. Like it's inspiring to me because I need to remember to do that too. Is like step into the unknown and push yourself even further and continue to grow and go beyond yourself. And yeah, it's not
Yeah,
easy to do that sufferfest and to face it openly.
exactly.
Yeah.
We don't have the answers. We need to sort of shoot into the abyss, I guess.
Yeah. Super important. Hell yeah. Is
Yeah.
there anything that you wanted to um,
Yes.
pass along? Yes.
I have a question for you. What is
Okay.
your what is your favorite mushroom?
My favorite mushroom?
Yeah.
Oh, uh, is this a legal or a non-legal?
Just
Favorite
um
mushroom? Uh, I like the special kind.
the special kind.
Yeah,
Right,
yeah,
that's good.
yeah. Like mushroom. That's again, I think mushrooms used. Like they are a device that releases a chemical that you have within you, and then can
Hmm.
elevate your mind if
Yeah.
taken properly.
Yeah, yeah.
But it's
I
just
have
like art. Yeah. But
I
why?
have a
Why do you
friend
ask?
friend at the Discord server
Mm,
who wanted me to. ask you your favorite mushroom.
The one that opens your mind the most is the best one. That's the
That's a good
most
answer.
honest answer. Yeah, because
Yeah.
the one, I mean, portobellos are nice to eat, but the other ones are. It's crazy that they're. I think it's one of the largest organisms on the planet Earth is a mushroom.
Right. Isn't there? Oh, I'm not sure, but it's like a really large portion of like all of the dirt is
Mhm.
just like
It's a
mushroom
fungus.
connection-y thingies.
Yeah,
Yeah.
which is crazy. And if you think about how it grows, it's kind of connected to how our brain is a neurological, like not a neurological, but
Hmm.
the way it like transfers out, it's almost like it's really
Finding
weird.
the shortest path and
Yep.
things like that.
Yeah, and it's one of
It's
the
really
oldest
interesting.
mechanisms to our organisms too on the planet, which is fucking wild. Yeah, shit. There was something I was gonna say. The mushroom thing. Damn it. It was. Oh no. Yeah, there was a mushroom shot in your film. Well, I was gonna ask you about
Oh,
that.
right.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
it's like leaking all of this. Not leaking, but like
Spores.
yeah, the spores are coming out. What's that all about?
Hmm. I saw it. I saw it on Pinterest. A similar shot. I was like, that's really cool.
Mm.
And I've seen. I mean, you've probably seen this documentary on Netflix, like Fantastic Fungi or something.
I've seen a couple things on fungus and mushrooms and stuff. It's
It's
wild.
really it's a really beautiful film,
Mm.
and I mean, it just sort of all kind of came together,
Mm.
and I was like, I could probably do something cool like that. Like
Mm.
we've been talking about creating like spore effects in Blender, like
Mm.
earlier. So I thought I'd give it a shot.
That's so cool. It's cool that you have a like a social network of friends too, huh? And you kind of work together.
Yeah,
Those
it's
are
really cool.
collaborators, but not collaborators almost, right?
Exactly, we feed
Mm.
off each other, like you and Color Sponge.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
I had a well, I still have it Discord, but now it's pretty dead.
Mm.
Because you need to be active.
Yeah. It's a plant that you need to water. You also have Patreon
Yeah,
too, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
You need to water everything. No,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
yeah, I've met a lot of interesting people there
Mm.
from me starting that server, and they've moved on to another server right now where I'm just hanging out, and we're in there chatting every once in a while,
Mm.
and
That's wild.
it's really cool because like those people have come together and started collaborating on like their own projects, and
Mm.
like it's really inspiring to see like they were doing like now gigs for like Alan Walker and like things like that,
Mm-hmm.
and um seeing them all come together and collaborating
Mm-hmm.
just like through a Discord server is really inspiring.
Well, it makes sense. I think that's the new place to communicate globally, not Discord in general, but just online like that in a friction free
Hmm.
form of just communicating and sharing things.
Yeah.
It makes sense. I mean, so when I was growing up, it was like anybody in your immediate physical circle. Anything outside of that doesn't really exist because
Hmm.
it's not near you. Because this is
Yeah.
pre-internet. So when the internet started happening, I was like, oh, this is the best thing because now I
Hmm.
can communicate and work with and talk with like my favorite artists, and that was what was
Yeah.
happening. And now that you're able to,
Exactly.
because all of you in the group, you're all if you all decide to do whatever you're doing, you're gonna all evolve
Hmm.
into these special factions of being amazing artists that are gonna be
Yeah.
inspiring.
Exactly.
And it all comes from this communication, this community
Hmm.
too, which is super massive, super important. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like teamwork, but we're still individuals,
Yeah.
like doing our.
And again, I think to talk about the process what you were asking about with Color Sponge and I, Carlos and I, it's the same thing, very similar, but just it's
Hmm.
just two people. Right? So our
Yeah.
Discord channel is just our server just has two users. So, but yeah,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
we love and respect one another, and we're curious and the desire to see what one another makes without the influence of one
Uh-huh.
another. So the original
Yeah.
part stays pure, separated
Hmm.
in a sense, but then it evolves, and then we start to share assets, and things start to
Hmm.
intermingle into the end, which is probably similar sounding. So similar
Yeah.
social mechanism. So
Yeah.
yeah,
So I
yeah.
guess it's a form of collaborating, but we're not working on like similar. We're still very different from each other though,
Hmm.
but still very alike.
Yeah. I wonder
No,
if
it's interesting.
yeah, I wonder if that is what you're doing is kind of like also attached to what your style is developing as because Sometimes, and actually, I'm going to ask you, and I'm curious, what do you think style is? What makes an artist style?
Um, well, I guess it's something that's similar through all their works.
Sure.
Something that you can look at that artwork and tell that, oh, it's done by this person.
Mm,
Something unique. It doesn't have to be. Yeah, it only has to be unique and transfer through the projects.
okay.
But that's not. But it doesn't have to be that though.
Mm,
I mean,
yeah.
say your style is ever changing,
Mhm.
so there's no, there the assimilarities between the projects becomes the new similarity, I guess.
So let's go binary. Let's go even further down that, because I agree. You just found it in your logic. You were going, wait, okay, if it's that, then that's not that because the style could change. So
But
what
then it
is
is that.
yes, but then what is style if this? So yeah, because it is true, right? Because a style is
Hmm.
something that you can identify. Like, okay, I know that is what the style is because it's that thing because it's derived from whatever that version of that person is intrinsically connected to their essence, basically. What would you say then? Because let's go further down. If it's not just the identifier, then what is it beyond the identifier? What is the style?
And
Putting you
these
on
are
the
two
spot.
deep questions.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's all. Why talk about anything other than deep things?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what a podcast is really designed for. I think that's what it's optimal. That's why
Hmm.
it's optimal use.
What do you think? What do you think style is then?
Okay, cool. Yeah, because I know I'm throwing you the deep end here, and this is something I put a lot of thought into, and I started thinking
Hmm.
about it myself, and I've talked about this in I think probably prior things, but I think that your style is everything that you've taken. It's all your successes that you've suffered through the failures from. So it's all of the things
Mm,
because let's take like a comic book artist. A comic book artist would potentially could have been a blender artist, but they
yeah.
just used comics as a form of communication because that's the tool. And then they learned how to
Hmm.
draw by failing until their style became unique enough that it was differentiating from everybody else. And I
Yeah.
think it's all of the things that you've succeeded through your suffer, basically. And that's what's lasted. And that's what makes you special.
To evolve your style, you need to focus all your energy.
Yeah.
Um, and if you're focusing your energy, and you're focusing your results, that's going to develop into a niche,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. I mean, that's what I feel. Cause I'm always trying to ask myself, like, what is a style? Why does a style is so unique? Why is this person different from that? And their
Hmm.
approach and does what outside influence has on their work and what inside influence has on their work and how does that evolve and stuff. But yeah, I
Yeah.
mean it's so deeply connected, but I feel like everything that your style it comes from being evolved past you going beyond yourself and
Yeah.
everybody else and finding what works for you
Hmm.
and then using that and not being afraid of it because I think a lot of times too we look at the outside world and we go, oh, well, Christopher Nolan's doing this and Alberto Miyago's
Hmm.
doing this, and these are all things that I want to be. You project, you go, I want to be
Yeah.
as good
Yeah.
as
Yeah.
this. But then what you realize is you shouldn't approach it like that. You should actually approach it as, what do I want? What makes me happy outside of just being motivated by these other humans?
Mm,
And then, because you have to think to those guys, they must be so lonely, because
yeah.
they're at this potential top of where
Exactly.
they are. They need friends too. They need inspiration. So you need to give that to
Uh-huh.
them too. And they will only be inspired by you making your work authentically for yourself.
It's like building blocks, and in the beginning you get inspired by so many people,
Yeah.
and you stack them on these different positions, and then you sort of find your own style, and you like take that average, and then you just keep evolving yourself.
Yeah.
And when you are sort of alone, that's sort of your style, sort of your like niche.
Yeah. 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 Which makes again, I think it's all connected to whatever your path is, whatever failures you've acquired, and then
Yeah,
whatever things you've succeeded past your
exactly.
failures. Yeah.
Right. If you fail one time, you're not gonna say you fail at like doing abstract render like a few times, then you're probably not gonna do it again.
Sure. But right
So
below that, the next time you try, it might be a masterpiece that's waiting to be seen. And you
yeah,
never know
exactly.
unless you try, which is crazy.
Hmm.
Yeah, we all have
Yeah.
the potential within us to make something masterful, not for the world, but for ourselves, and I think that's really,
Mm.
it's a powerful thing to think about. It's a lot of weight to consider too, if you think about it. And we all have it within us, which is brilliant too. It's just like the concept of what a psychedelic drug is, or what art does. It reveals and unravels something within yourself, which is really crazy to think about. And I
Mm.
think if anything, if ever more than ever in the future, or the currency of art is like now that artificial intelligence in quotes, because it's not AI art, it's just, I would call it algorithmic art or something, because this is happening. We're all having to shake loose what didn't matter and see what we can go past. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's fascinating.
We're always chipping away the process though.
Hmm. What do you mean by that?
Like say before there were path tracers that were like really good. You had to like design your own shadows or like bake your own lighting and
Yeah,
things like that. And
AO and
the
stuff.
art,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, the art was trying to achieve realism through that,
Mm-hmm.
for example.
Yeah,
And then I didn't live through that, but that's just
but you're
what
using
I've
the
heard.
tools now. Yeah, and
Exactly, and that feels like my default.
there was a
And
world
it's
before the
chipping.
toilet, but we're living with toilets now. So
Exactly.
yeah, and
Right.
we're
Like
using it.
we can't comprehend how we're gonna adapt in the future. And
No.
it's like you can always try to understand the future based on what's happening now.
Mm-hmm.
But we're changing so rapidly and adapting that it makes it sort of stupid to try to guess what's gonna happen in the future.
It's a fool's errand. I think you just need to just focus on what it is that you're doing and why you're doing it, and have purpose and pursuit behind it, and
Mm.
everything else comes from that. If I mean, a friend of mine asked me, is like, if this machine and all this stuff kind of took over your job, what would you consider? And I said, no matter what, I would evolve and adapt and shift my way of providing a living for my family, but I will always do
Hmm.
art the way I do it, because I enjoy it,
Yeah.
because I love it.
Yeah.
I love doing it. And I love sharing it with friends and being inspired and
Hmm.
being motivated. And yeah, there's just so much
Your
value in that.
motivation might change too. Like
Yes, yeah. If
like
you
you
remove
d-
money from the
maybe.
equation, it's more pure too. So yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
Exactly. Like say when it's just speculation, but like if AI art starts doing this one thing and like there's not a lot of value in what you used to do before,
Mhm.
then you might find something else that makes you feel the exact same way.
Yeah.
Uh,
You either will or you won't. Some people will rise to the challenge within themselves, and some people
mm,
won't. And
exactly.
everybody that's listening to this, please, if you're feeling pain because of this, I urge you to take a look at yourself and ask yourself why you feel this pain, and look at yourself and help evolve past that pain. I guarantee
Hmm.
you will be so much more happy and proud of yourself, rather than just spending time on Twitter and sending a lot of anger and hate in the world, because there's no point in that. We all have those places and we want to be angry, and a lot of people don't have people in their lives to listen to them when they're angry. So I can understand that, but there's got to be a way to get past that, I think. And there is so much more, but again, it's a choice. You can either choose to spend your time
Hmm.
observing and taking in a lot of content from around the world, or you can spend your time sitting there playing video games or whatever. But you've chosen to make this path, which is to be an artist and expose yourself and express yourself. And you give a lot of I watched some of your tutorials, you give a lot of your energy to the community, which is also a selfless act, but is also really great. I hope you never lose
Hmm.
that. I think that's really great.
Yeah.
Something that I wish I did more. I can only have so much. That's why I do the podcast again, because I feel
Hmm.
like it helps in myself, and it also helps people at large, which is wonderful to do. So,
Yeah. Like there you can either like there are certain types of artists who feed off their art or feed off like the teaching of their art, or like things around their art.
mhm,
Um, you need to find sort of a balance
mhm.
between what you like. If I only do tutorials and I have like I can do all right, I have all right skills, but I'm only going to be able to my I'm dependent on providing tutorials
Yes,
to
you
people.
become a slave of it. I mean, I've seen friends become
Exactly.
slaves of Patreon and stuff too, and it's so
Hmm.
that doesn't seem appealing to me. You're changing one slave master for another. And it's like, well,
Exactly.
Yeah. And then ultimately you have to ask yourself, well, why am I doing this in the first place? You know, ultimately what, and it seems like you and I have a similar fuel, the same as Carlos. And, you know, it's like we get inspired by going into the unknown within ourselves and then pulling something out and getting like, oh, this is cool. Or, oh, wow, that's interesting. Or, you know, like talking about theme films that actually succeeded in having a theme and a core and a story and also having a fantasy world, like Children of Men. Have you seen that film?
No.
Ah, damn it, William.
I'll write that up.
How dare you be 16 years old with a lack of film experience?
Yeah.
Okay, well, yeah, I would say at the top of the list, please watch that film, and either you like it or no. I'd be really surprised if you didn't grasp it. But I won't go into it further beyond just that's a film that has a core and a theme and it lives in a future world filled with the fantasy of things, but it's also human level, and it makes it very relevant to this. And it's a league of its own kind of film too. But I don't know where I was going. There's another tangent. I don't know how to end this podcast, honestly, and it's wonderful to talk with you, but we should wrap it because we're on 3 hours. But I would love to have you back and we can talk about whatever.
Love that, man.
Yeah. Whatever.
Thanks for having me. It's a really good time.
Yeah, dude. Thank you, man. You're awesome. And I really appreciate you taking the time, and props to your parents, dude. And props to everybody in your community, and props to you for doing what you're doing. And I'm excited to see what you're going to be producing
Might try that deep fake.
100% the deep fake thing. Yeah. I think that's going to give you your solve. Yeah.
If I manage to get it working, that'll be really cool. But,
almost positive you can with your community. Imagine that you guys can pull strength together and figure out a way to do it. And by doing that, I'm sure everybody will thrive off of that too, because then you guys will have this tool that is so special that blends Blender with deepfake, and then there's gonna be all this stuff going on, and sure, it's gonna be great. But I'm almost positive that's if you're trying to do humans, because again, when you think about like ILM or like even Blade Runner had. Tell me you've seen the first one, right?
Yeah, I have sort of.
Damn it, you.
Sort of. But
it is an older film, so yeah. But they
got a really good 3D human in Blade Runner 2.
Yes,
Rachel.
That was the best
really
one
amazing.
I think I've ever seen.
Yeah,
but you're talking a team of hundreds of people. I think
exactly
to execute and that style and lighting that's solving it. She's not in the broad daylight, and we don't have more than a couple minutes with her maximum. I think seconds, if anything. So style, lighting, and a short window of time.
You need to. Yeah, there's like a niche of where you can use like realistic humans.
Yeah.
So you need to sort of conform your storytelling to that.
Yes, unfortunately. Yeah. But again, at the same time, when we talk about the value of Alberto's work, it's the stylization of his reality, how he sees it, which is fascinating, Yeah. Which makes it interesting. Shit, we're going on a tangent again. Okay.
Yeah.
Will, is there anything that you want to plug or talk about or anything before we wrap? And I have 2 questions for you I like to wrap every episode with. So
yeah.
Okay.
No, there's not a lot.
Okay. Well, he's got a Patreon. He's got a YouTube channel. He's got Instagram. It'll be all in the show notes too. So if you guys want to check out his work and see it, obviously, you know how it all works. This is the internet. We don't have to explain it. Okay. 2 questions. One of them, what are you most thankful for at the moment now?
I'm probably thankful for my like close friends and my girlfriend. Like my social life is a lot better right now, and I think that it's a lot. It positively affects my my creative work as well. So that's probably the most important thing right now.
I love that, dude. That's awesome. Okay, well, wonderful. And then lastly, if you had to nominate somebody to come on the podcast and talk, is there somebody that comes to mind that you would say, I would like for you to talk to this person? Could be anybody. And I can
Alberto Miego.
All right.
Do you know who Alex Roman is?
Yes, I know who Alex is. Yeah.
Yeah, he's like dead or something. Or no, probably not, but
I don't think he's dead. Is he? No, he can't be dead. But no, he's I don't think he interacts online all that much.
Yeah, exactly. Like,
which is really
that would be that'd be a real challenge.
Well, I've talked to him a bit online. So, but yeah, getting him out. But Alberto, yeah, I've already been talking to Alberto about getting him on the podcast.
Yeah, we'd love to see a talk.
Yeah, I think that we're due time because the last one we did was like 6 or 8 years ago or some crap like that. So it was a long time ago. Okay, I can do that.
Yep.
I can do that. Well, at least I can try. But
Yeah.
Wonderful, dude.
Great.
Well, you're awesome.
You're awesome too, bro.
Keep killing it, and keep inspiring us. And yeah, dude, all the best. Cheers to you, and cheers to 2023. It's going to be an amazing year for us.
Thank you for having me.
Awesome.